This, as you know, is the third workshop in the programme. The programme was set up to look at what the future has in store for us, particularly in the context of developing new local plans for Peterborough and Huntingdonshire. Local plans set out those sort of targets and ambitions for the future of our area, and it just so happens that they're being taken forward at roughly the same time in both Peterborough and Huntingdonshire. So quite a big area there where a lot of people, both officers and developers and environmentalists and educationalists, are all sitting down and thinking, well, what does that future look like? What do we need to plan for? And the Phoenix programme, sponsored, as we know, by Phoenix Investments, Sustainable Investments, is all about engaging conversations around those subjects, non-confrontational, just generally discussing what does it mean to think about the housing of the future, the transport of the future, the communities of the future, what do the jobs of the future look like. We held two workshops last year. The first one was looking at communities, the environment and energy, and the second one at employment and skills. And you can find records of both of those on the Phoenix website. If you need them, just give me a shout and I can locate them for you or send them to you. But if you do go on the Phoenix website, they're there. And they are very much being used to develop Phoenix's own thinking, and we hope other people's thinking as we plan for those years ahead and what those means for businesses and for communities and for employers and councils as well. This programme was very much focused, our initial thinking was focusing on what does this mean for young people. The local plan process looks forward to at least 2040, which is quite a considerable time ahead. And for many of us in this room, I tell you what, just let's talk about me, because I don't want to reflect on anybody else. But for some of us in this room, i.e. me, I'm probably I'll be hoping that I won't be working at that stage. And indeed, perhaps a lot of things will have already over my head. So it's not so much about planning for people like me. It really is planning for those people who will be growing up in this period, entering the labour market in this period, and developing their careers and their lives. So we thought it'd be really important to listen to young people and hear from them as part of Phoenix's thinking, but also hopefully... Indeed, it isn't. As Phoenix is thinking, but also hopefully all of our thinking, because this is meant to be a general conversation and discussion. So the themes we want to explore tonight are, what is it that young people living in this area, Peterborough and Huntingdonshire, what are they thinking about what the world will hold for them in 2040? What does all of this planning mean for them, and how can their voice be best heard? Alongside that, what is artificial intelligence and what does it hold for us? That's a huge question, and I was just talking to our two other speakers here, and they both said, presumably we're speaking for 2 hours each. There is so much to talk about, and so many unknown unknowns, to use that dreadful expression. So I'm delighted that we're going to be talking about the technology and artificial intelligence, and also about the economic outlook for the area. Where will business be focused? What skills will be required? What are the opportunities? So our agenda tonight starts with Eva Woods, and I'm going to introduce her in a minute, talking about the voice of young people across Peterborough and Huntingdonshire. She'll be then joined by a panel of young people, and my job is to try and engage a conversation between us all. So it's not a sort of presentation Q&A. I'd like to just get involved in discussion as much as we can in that process. That will be followed by Dr. Faraz Jahan, who is going to be talking to us about the impact of artificial intelligence and what that might mean for us. We'll have a Q&A discussion after that, and then a break. And then after the break, Al Kingsley will be talking about not only the region's local economy and technology and education, but he's also pretty well cited, to say the least, on AI and schools and education. So bringing all that together, and we'll have a final discussion before Carl Hick, who's our host tonight and chairman of Phoenix Sustainable Investments, will round things off for us before we have chance for some networking and some buffet and drinks in the room next door. So that's the agenda as we have it. I think it sounds like a really promising and really interesting conversation. I hope we'll all take part. As, I think the really important thing is don't be shy. Let's all get involved and engaged in the discussion, because it is so important. So what I wanted to do first was introduce Eva. Eva Woods is she's recently finished her term as Youth Parliament for Peterborough, as MP for Peterborough, Youth MP, representing those aged 11 to 18. The role has involved directing projects and campaigns to address youth issues in Peterborough, from sexual harassment in schools to the promotion of young workers' rights. She's a former student at Neame Park Academy, Peterborough, and she's now working at the Combined Authority. If anyone's met or heard Eva before, she's very thought-provoking, got lots of ideas, and Eva, we'd love to hear the work you've been doing about young people's views on this process. So welcome, Eva. It's pretty straightforward. Next and back. Yeah, I could work it. You're going to be
Thank you. I'll have a go. People always assume that young people know how to use tech, and it's interesting. There's still a skills gap there. So, brilliant. So my name's Eva Woods, as I've just been introduced, and this is just a bit about me and why I'm qualified, or should be qualified, to tell you a bit about young people in the region and what we need from local plans, what we need from all the stakeholders in this room, no matter where you come from. So, as has just been said, I started off my career as Peterborough's Member of Youth Parliament. There are over 300 members of Youth Parliament across the UK, and it's a programme that's funded by DCMS. And members of Youth Parliament, they work nationally to draw a focus to youth issues and add youth voice to decisions made in Westminster, and also locally as well, as I did in some of the projects that have been mentioned. In terms of what I've done from there, so I now work at the Careers Hub at the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, and what we do is we work with careers leaders in schools across the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough area to build their capacity within schools to bring in business volunteers, help young people come into contact with the world of work, and make sure that careers education is embedded into their curriculum, and that's supported by the Careers and Enterprise Company nationally. I also work at Peterborough City Council in the Youth and Communities team, and we do everything from the cost of living hubs to community cohesion events to looking at the very initial genesis of a youth strategy for the city too. I still have another role at UK Youth Parliament. I sit on the steering group, so we look at what that programme looks like nationally. And just to top it all off, I'm also co-chair of trustees at Peterborough's umbrella organisation for the voluntary sector, PCVS. So that's me. That's my journey through being a young person and being involved in Youth Voice, and now facilitating it and allowing it to function across the region and feed into strategy too. So if you're really new to Youth Voice and you're thinking, I really care about what young people want from our region, how do I involve young people more in my work, as well as employing them and allowing them to feed into decisions you make internally, there is a lot of Youth Voice data out there. On a national level, that comes from things like Make Your Mark, which is a big national referendum that's just taken place this year, which identifies the top issue to young people across the UK. It's got a significant turnout of young people nationally who vote in that, and the results will be out soon. And National Youth Advisory Boards, so the Careers and Enterprise Company has one, various different departments of government have them. We also have things like that locally, so there's an NHS Youth Forum, different cities have the youth councils. I'm here with representatives of the Peterborough Youth Council today, and of course members of Youth Parliament. But what we're going to plough into in a bit more detail in this session is the results from a survey that has been done specifically for these workshops, looking at the issues outlined in the local plan and things that are top on the agenda for regeneration and development locally. And that has, of course, been supported and funded by Phoenix. So, pulling out some of the key data from this survey that's just taken place, you can see that the themes that are embedded in the local plan gain a bit more insight in terms of what young people have to say about them, what young people are most concerned about, and we'll also look in a few minutes at some of the solutions that are suggested. So I've pointed out first that 53.88% of respondents said that they were very aware of the impacts of climate change. And obviously that's 1 in 2 young people. So if you're thinking about, if you work in education, that's 1 in 2 young people in your school, that's hundreds of young people. If you work in a business, then if you employ 2 young people, 1 of them is probably acutely aware of the impacts of climate change. That's a significant percentage of young people who that is a significant issue too. And also we've seen a large proportion of respondents have said that they are particularly worried about climate change to the point where it will affect their major decisions in the future. So thinking about whether they stay in the region and they benefit from some of the future planning that we are doing now. If it doesn't feel environmentally conscious, we may lose those young residents. So thinking about who will be the residents of the future, it may not be those of us who are currently involved in Youth Voice now, because if we're not matching up with their expectations around climate, they may no longer be here. Housing and work. A large proportion, 59.26% of respondents, said that they are not confident that they will own a home by the age of 30. I don't think that's new information to lots of people in the room, but it just drives home that there is considerable concern amongst young people about the availability of housing, especially to them. And 47.81% said that they rated the job opportunities near them as average, whilst 34.21% said that it was poor. So, especially thinking about employment strategies in the region, and with my Careers Hub hat on, that is disappointing that young people aren't seeing the opportunity that exists for them in this region, and their innovation and their ideas and what they bring to the table, again, may be taken elsewhere if they don't feel like it's welcome or needed in this area. And I know that's not true from the work I do. So I'd like to see what can be done moving forward to help young people see just how much opportunity there is for them here. But then there's this big theme that comes up around feeling unprepared, which brings me into what my key takeaway from the results of this survey was. And that's that young people have their general sense about what the future will bring isn't positive. And they're frequently not leaving school and their start in life feeling like they are equipped to take on this scary world full of climate change and difficulty to find houses and jobs. There was a general sense of concern around AI. Like I said, young people are generally expected to be very receptive to the benefits technology will bring, but there was quite a lot of fear around how that will impact jobs, so it'll be brilliant to get some more insight on that in the rest of this session. And young people generally feel like they don't leave school with the financial and life skills to be able to cope. So you don't leave school feeling like you can pay your bills and you can make big purchases, you can make intelligent financial decisions. I certainly didn't. I left school and went straight into work, and I learned things every day about things that you are supposed to do naturally as an adult, which you just don't figure out on your own. So there's a lot of strides to be taken in education. But another key theme and takeaway from this survey is we can't think about the future without thinking about now. We are likely to see a degree of brain drain or loss of aspirations and loss of talent and potential in our young people if we're not able to address some of these glaring issues which came out of the survey. Even though it wasn't looking specifically at things like safety and well-being, those themes definitely still came out around mental health and antisocial behaviour, which in my role at Peterborough City Council I come across on a daily basis. The lack of safe spaces for young people and support systems for them when they are struggling, whether that be because they're vulnerable to abuse and exploitation or because they're struggling with their mental health, there is still a general lack, and that definitely fits into our plans for future infrastructure. So I just pull out as well, 41.32% said that public transport availability was average, whilst 11.16 said it was poor, 26.86 said it was good, which links back to the bottom point on that screen. Inequality is huge. We're talking about Peterborough and Huntingdonshire. I'm from Peterborough. I was no more than a 2-hour walk from anywhere I needed to be during my education. That's not true of young people in Huntingdonshire. That inequality is absolutely rife. And young people have said that their overall educational experience, 11.21, described it as poor. And that's, again, 1 in 10. So if you think 30 students in a secondary school class, that's 3 of them have had a really poor experience of their education. And what I would point out around safety and well-being, antisocial behaviour, 20%, so 1 in 5, said that antisocial behaviour was their main barrier to using public transport. So thinking about Peterborough, we have got buses, they are there, but people won't use them because of the antisocial behaviour. And one student or one respondent even recommended that we should kick more students out of school. I quote, "The school I go to doesn't feel like a safe learning environment just based on the people. Lessons are constantly disrupted, so I don't learn as much and I don't feel safe going there." So when we talk about equipping young people with the skills they need for the future, we can build as much of that into our curriculums as we want. But if young people aren't able to benefit from those because they don't have the school environment that they deserve, and that's for a range of reasons, especially focusing on safety and well-being, because young people aren't enemies here, they're people we need to support and understand the needs of. No one's going to reap the benefits of our brilliant skills system if young people aren't able to turn up to school and get the experience that they should have. So what are the solutions? What was recommended by this survey? If change is not taken forward, then, as I've said previously, these inequalities will be entrenched because some people will have better access than others, especially thinking about those themes around transport and connectivity, or young people will just disappear and everything we've invested in, they will have gone elsewhere for their higher education, or they won't have gone into higher education because their aspirations will not have been fed, and we will see that replicated. So what can we do at all levels? Looking at housing and transport, so those key infrastructure pieces, 26.27% said that the main barrier to using public transport wasn't antisocial behaviour, it was the price of it. And equally, another young person recommended that financial aid, flexibility in housing contracts, government collaboration, community engagement, and improved affordability measures are key for transport and housing. So there is quite a key call to action there for the people in this room, whatever your role is, to put in place specific access measures for young people around housing, transport and other infrastructure. If we are not specifically looking at how we can make those key things accessible to young people, then they're not able to participate in the region, they're not able to live here, they're not able to travel here. That is absolutely fundamental, and we do need some quite clear affirmative action there in the opinion of young people. And also looking at education and careers, 43.23% said it was neither easy or difficult to discover new job opportunities, and also we had a lot of people say that it was very difficult. So if you've got vacancies that you're struggling to recruit for, again with my combined authority hat on, this is where we really need to invest in our skill system, because if young people have the impression that it is difficult to find a job, whereas we're struggling to fill vacancies, that is a skills need. So we do need to be looking at how we can pull together to make a skills system and an education system that is responsive to what business needs and involves young people and helps them understand the opportunities are here. We want your skills, we want your energy, and we're going to make sure that you are equipped to be part of our teams and part of our vision. And another student recommended that we need to engage not only the poor behaved students, but also acknowledge the hard-working students who are neglected and assumed to be perfect when deep down they're not. So that's feeding into that mental health point. Obviously, we've got to deal with the antisocial behaviour, we've got to deal with disruptions in education and in our wider communities, but also for those young people who aren't engaged in that kind of behaviour, but are feeling the effects of it through not feeling safe in their schools and their homes and their communities. Again, we're not going to retain those young people if we don't invest in their well-being too. And that's a responsibility that sits across loads of partners in health, in education, in all kinds of directorates and communities that we all exist in. Climate emergency, quite a clear ask there. Young people are clearly very concerned about the climate, and a lot of work is going on at a technical level to try and understand what the solutions need to be. But if this isn't communicated to young people, they're going to remain feeling concerned and not listened to, and that is how we end up with friction between communities and decision makers. So we need to really look at how we communicate with young people. And then safe and healthy communities, I've distilled the final set of recommendations into. How do we make, quoting a respondent, public places safer for young kids? Somebody's recommended having a security type person on a bus. I don't know whether that's something that people in the room would welcome seeing, more security and more enforcement to improve antisocial behaviour. I was in a meeting only this morning about organised crime in areas of Peterborough and having a healthy debate about whether increased police presence would help or hinder that. So we definitely need to look at how we reduce antisocial behaviour, whether that's through enforcement or other means. I'm a massive advocate of youth work, as I'm sure you can tell. Better systems for those with mental health problems, more resources for those disabled, and better quality activities for teens, both in school and in the community, especially if they fail GCSEs. So comparative nationally, we do have comparatively low levels of neat young people, but that is still an issue. Anybody who's not getting the best chances in life, we can't not pour energy and focus into there just because it's not as bad as other areas of the country. So we definitely need focus around pathways for young people who are not in education, employment or training. And also what this response is trying to articulate is that we no longer have a universal youth offer. We do not have the youth support that was present decades ago, and there is appetite to move backwards to that amongst the youth work community to try and replicate some of the opportunities that used to be there around a diverse offer that builds healthy communities for young people. It would be brilliant to see a political appetite that reflects that. So when ideas are socialised around a universal youth work offer, for that to be, if not received with open arms, at least engaged with. And then feedback from students around how they feel they're doing in education, and then to gather information from them individually and find sources and advise them with their worries. So again, there's two themes there. How do we involve youth voice in the decisions we make all the time? Because it is always there, whether solicited or not. If you think that young people are a bother in their constant feedback cycles, how can we use that in a way that is less frustrating and more constructive? And how can we give young people the individual attention they deserve? Because when a young person joins your team as an employer, if they're properly line managed, then they will have the tools to identify their skill sets, identify where they could be better, and absolutely fly within your organisation. And if we can begin that in education, then we set that standard as young people move into the world of work, where they're responsible for their own upskilling journey and their own contribution to their workplace and their community. And then lastly, I close on the need for spaces, because there is a huge lack of youth spaces where young people can just be and feel safe and access. And if we want to deliver any of this offer for young people, if we're not sure where they are and we're not sure that they're safe, then we can't deliver any of this wider offer. So that capital infrastructure piece is absolutely key too. So to close us off before we move on to our panel discussion and we hear some wider views on the experience of young people in Peterborough and Huntingdonshire and how we respond to some of the issues raised, we just need to bring this back into the context of our local plan, because we have a brilliant opportunity now to really build in a trajectory that tells a story of where young people are now, which the data's really lent us an insight into, and where we want our young people to be, both in terms of where our young people want to see our region in the future, and where we build young people into our legacy plans, because everyone in the room has something that they've built that they're proud of or they're invested in. How do you bring young people along on your journey so that there's succession there and we're all together in a shared ambition? So I'll hand back over. Thank you for listening. Hopefully that was either an insight into some broader themes or a nice introduction to youth voice for anyone who's new to it. Thank you.
Brilliant, Eva. Thank you so much for that. Can I invite you then to come and join us on the panel? I think the four of you are joining us. Is that right? Lovely. Come and sit down. I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves and maybe say a few words and then hopefully sort of spark a bit of a dialogue. I don't know about you, but I found that absolutely fascinating. A little bit alarming, I thought, in many respects, in terms of some of the key messages that were coming through. And a lot, I think, for people to think about to ensure that we address these issues and make sure that youth voice is not only heard but listened to and acted upon. So Eva, thanks for bringing us up to speed with these surveys. Could I ask you to perhaps introduce yourself, starting on the right there, maybe just your name and your background, what you're doing. Thank you.
Hiya. Oh, that's loud. My name is Kelly De Jesus. I'm currently a student at ARU Peterborough and I'm pursuing a law degree. I first of all just want to thank everybody in here for embracing that young people are genuinely interested and your presence speaks volumes. But That's a short introduction to me.
Lovely. Nice to meet you, Kelly. Thank you.
I need to press it.
I think so, yeah. Okay,
Okay.
it's automatic.
Hi, I'm Daisy Blake McCreadon, and I am the press officer on the Youth Council. I currently study my A-levels at Ken Simpson Community School in Peterborough.
Lovely. Daisy, thank you. Nice to meet you.
Hi, my name's Aryan Hatta. I'm currently in Year 10 and I'm the chair of the Peterborough Youth Council and I attend Bourne Grammar School.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much. And you're, of course, Eva. Daisy, can I just ask you, for instance, I know that you're particularly interested in housing.
Yes.
It's one of the things. I mean, from your point of view, how attainable is housing for young people? And is it something that people just don't even think about anymore? Or how important is it to them?
Well, I can only talk from my own perspective.
Thank you.
As a young person who grew up in social housing, Cross Keys housing in Peterborough, you find yourself quite at a disadvantage when it comes to housing and knowing how to get on the market and how to learn more about the system, the housing system, for example, like getting a mortgage, renting a property.
And does that take us back, Eva, a little bit to the point you made about so many young people feel that they're finishing their sort of schooling education without the knowledge of how they can get on to housing ladders and benefits, etc.?
Absolutely, and I would say that we can't put that on education because the amount of pressure that is on the school system to teach within a specific capacity and to help young people leave with the qualifications recognised by employers that they might need for their next steps, it is impossible to expect that in any kind of standardised way with the capacity that schools currently have that they meet all of those needs as well without some proper thought and development and investment. So I think that's where youth work and the wider offer comes in, because when young people leave school, coming back to those safe spaces, where do they go? They go home and they might find the answers on the internet if they're looking for them, but otherwise we need to think about a young person's wider day and not pin all of that life skills expectation on the standard education system.
Yeah, brilliant. And Daisy, if I could just come back to you quickly on housing, I think what I was interested in as well is whether for young people housing is a sort of, it's almost a natural step. You know, people will move into housing, it's what you do. When I was young, that's what happened. You just bought a house and you got on with it. Is that still an attainable dream for young people?
I think young people's priorities are more on the education, university, getting into work, and then housing comes into that after, because it's not an attainable thing as what it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. And Aryan, if I can just turn to you, because I know we talked a lot, or Eva talked a lot in her presentation about transport, and it did strike me that this is a particularly important issue for young people. It's very easy for people of my age to just, I get in the car, I drive somewhere. What are the sort of the real, not just the barriers to using public transport, but if you can't use public transport, what are the impacts on a young person's life?
Yeah, so I've actually had quite a few conversations with some of my friends in school and with other young people in the city. And, if you want to go to anywhere for an event, like for example, the event here, I had to take a ride for my mum. So for someone who doesn't have necessarily supportive parents, which not everyone does, it becomes hard to engage in activities which are beneficial for their future. So that might result in, them not being able to succeed to their full potential in the future.
So a real barrier in a way to that potential.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you. And can I just come back to you then, Kelly, as well? One of the things I was interested in is, I suppose this is actually for all of you, but Kelly first perhaps. I mean, do you feel that the youth voice is heard? I mean, do you feel that you're getting that sort of hearing in the sort of corridors of power, that people are listening to what you're saying?
Yeah, like I said, just being in a room like this already speaks volumes. But if I had to speak for the people around me, I would say that it can be difficult to see where your words go, how far your words go. And I don't know if that just means that people aren't going far enough to investigate, well, I said this at this place and what's been done about it. But I think there's a difficulty there in seeing the product of your contributions as a young person.
Yeah. So people might be hearing, but then maybe you're not seeing the actions that flow from that, perhaps.
Yeah, for me, it's difficult to distinguish whether I'm contributing to contribute so that the other party can tick a box and say,
Right.
I've had a young person over, or whether your contributions are actually being taken into account. So
Really important, really important.
Yeah.
I will come to you in a minute, Jacob. I was just going to start, though, with perhaps some of our educationalists in the room, because some of the outcomes that Eva were describing were fairly alarming in terms of that sense of people not feeling that they're sort of leaving school with the skills they need for life, really. And nearly over 10% of people saying that their education was poor, and a third saying that their education was at best average. So I'm going to just wonder whether any of our educationalists would like to comment on that at all. I mean, Eva's already defended you, so don't worry, in saying that it isn't your fault. I'm looking at Al and Mark, but I know there's other teachers in the room as well. I saw one or two. So maybe just some comments on that point that, you know, yes, certainly. So I don't know your name, sorry.
I'm Councillor Claire Tevlin from HTC.
Lovely, thank you, Claire.
I very much empathise with what you're going through, the next generation up. I'm in my late 20s, early 30s, and having gone through the education system, got a degree, got a master's, it's still incredibly difficult for young people getting up in the employment ladder, and the opportunities need to be bridged from employers and businesses to give those chances to young people. I know post-COVID, I've spoken to a lot of 18-year-olds recently, and they're really deciding, actually, no, university isn't for me. I'd much rather invest my time elsewhere, because the cost of university just doesn't, and the experience of it just doesn't outweigh what society is now evolved to, where the job market no longer matches the education system. And that's exactly what you're saying, and I haven't gone through it myself as well. Yes, I'm a counsellor, but that's completely a different way I've gone about my life. And I think I would say that the businesses and all of you business leaders here today really think of how young people can actually how we can bridge the gap between educational, give them the educational opportunities that actually give them the skills applicable to your businesses, whether it's marketing or any other applicable skills that will get them all forward. So that's my comment, really, and I hope, yeah.
Thank you, Claire. That's ever so kind. Thank you. Could you pass your microphone to Al? So I know he wants to make a comment as well. Thank you.
Firstly, huge respect for panellists and articulating so clearly kind of those perspectives. So thank you for that. I think the question that we always ask, and there's always a limit in terms of capacity within schools, is in terms of that accessibility. I'm interested from the panellists whether, if there was broader choice or different ways to acquire qualifications, do you think that would have played to the strength of more of their peers in the schools?
Yeah, let me put that question to the panel. I mean, Eva, do you want to take that first? Is it about having broader choice and being able to pick some more sort of specific subjects or topics that could help with those life skills?
Yes and no would be my answer. I think we definitely lose the ambition. I'm trying to speak into the mic and both respond to you. Thank you. We definitely lose the ambition of a lot of young people through them not having pathways that are appropriate and interesting to them. But then again, young people often report that they have to make major choices about their next steps far too early, and they feel refined, especially when making choices about post-16. Some students are left with very little choices, obviously, and it's very much find yourself the right vocational pathway now, otherwise we don't know where you're going to be next. And some students will progress to sixth form and have lots of options left open to them, and they've got a bit more time to decide what they want to do with their lives. So I think in terms of a more diverse offering of qualifications, I think we definitely need to work more closely with the business community and with employers to understand what qualifications do you require from young people, so we can make sure we're recognising that young people who are coming into the labour market have those skills that you need. And then also beyond that, how can we create a package that maintains young people's interest in their skills and also doesn't restrict them too quickly and allows them to realise their potential?
Daisy, did you want to say anything on that at all?
I speak to a lot of post-16 students every day, and they find it quite difficult to decide whether to go to university, whether to do apprenticeships, but most of them look at university as the best way through to their climb up in education and into further workplaces. And it would be good to have more young people and teachers and people who work in the education system to help us to look at other ways to get into work.
Yeah, I'm going to just carry on with this subject of education for a minute, and I'm going to invite Councillor Linnaeus to speak on that. But I'm going to sort of almost ask you a question before you speak, Lynn, which is a bit unfair, really, isn't it? I think what... Yeah, I know. Yeah, of course. I think what alarms me a little bit about this conversation is it isn't new, is it? I mean, this conversation has been going on since I left school and even at school. So how come we haven't cracked it? I mean, it doesn't, no disrespect to you guys, but it doesn't sound like rocket science either. So how come we haven't cracked this one?
How come we haven't cracked it? Well, when I went to university, which is a very long time ago, there weren't many people going to university. Now there are plenty. There are 50% want to go to university. Not all get there. Other people prefer to go to the technical colleges, and etc. And of course, we've got two in Peterborough, you know, and around the area. But I think it's all to do with adequacy, isn't it? It's all to do with whether we can find the places for them. Can I ask the question that I was particularly interested in of the panel? Do you mind?
Yeah, of course.
because I'm been involved with education pretty much all my working life. I've been a solicitor actually, but I've been to university myself, as you've heard. But I'm particularly interested now in higher education and further education, and ARU in particular. ARU Peterborough, and I thought that one of the best things that had happened recently is the idea of apprenticeship degrees. But I do keep hearing that there aren't many happening. And I think, why don't the young people realise that if they manage to get involved in that, or why don't the employers realise if they manage to get involved in that, the students aren't going to have loans at the end of the day. And who wants to have a loan of £50,000 or no loan? And I should have thought the answer was no loan. So anyway, it's apprenticeship degrees. I can see it being the future, but that needs the schools and the employers and the students all to get together, doesn't it?
Yes.
Somehow.
Absolutely.
In order to create it.
Yeah. Kelly, what's your response to that? You're at ARU, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're doing a degree, or...?
Yeah, I'm doing a degree.
Why did you choose a degree over a degree apprenticeship, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, whereas a degree apprenticeship is is a great idea, and I see why it'd be favoured over your traditional degree. I think at the moment, maybe not from your perspective, but from where we're at as young people, it's more of a risk than anything else, because it's so new to us. And it really comes down to people being informed, people making informed decisions. And from the perspective of a young person, it's simply too early to say that it would be worthwhile to pick a degree apprenticeship over the traditional degree. Besides, you do get the odd apprenticeship that isn't well managed. You get people being exploited and not being given the opportunity to expand on their skills. I've got a friend who's an excellent chef, and she's, from time to time, I hear about her apprenticeship, and she says, well, I've been in the kitchen, as in cleaning. And whereas that's great, it's not for her. It's not what she signed up for. So there's a lot to consider there. But
so that's quite a big point there about quality, isn't it, actually? Yeah. Whether it's a degree or a degree apprenticeship. Arlene, did you want to offer anything on that? And then I will come to you, Eva.
Yeah. So, currently at the age of 15, I'm just coming to the stage where, we have to make decisions between our post-16 options. And in my personal belief, in my school, what I've realised is we've got quite a lot of options available. It's just that we're all bombarded at the same year. For example, year 9 or 10, all the choices are brought out then. If there was we're steadily given small amounts of information, that would be a much more easier way for us to process all of it. if we're just being bombarded by all of the information at one point, then we're not able to decide by ourselves which is the best option for us. Then we have to take help from our parents and other carers around us, and that decision might be correct from their point of view, but times are changing, employers are changing, and the requirements for each job are changing. So if we have the information delivered to us from a younger age and at a slower rate, I think we can make more informed choices.
That's really helpful, actually. I think, Eva, maybe we could turn to you, because you've been making some of these choices yourself recently. Which side of the divide have you come up in terms of degree or degree apprenticeship, and perhaps why?
Yeah, I'll talk a little about my choice, and then there was something else I just wanted to chip in as well. So I'm a prospective degree apprenticeship student. I had hoped to go to university in a traditional route. I ended up going straight into work and absolutely loving it, and the opportunities that brought and the mentorship that brought. So I'm a massive advocate for vocational learning if you found the right pathway and you know it's for you, mine being in local government. But also there's a phrase we hear daily in the Careers Hub, and that is degree apprenticeships don't grow on trees. So there's only, in terms of degree level apprenticeships, I believe there's less than 20 of them in existence currently in terms of actual not as in places, as in actual qualifications you can gain. So nowhere near as expansive a catalogue as traditional degrees provide. So not a good choice for young people who aren't quite as set on what they want to do yet. And also employers have a limited ability to provide them, because the levy often doesn't stay in the region, and employers aren't fully in the know about how to facilitate a degree apprentice. Sometimes degree apprentices leaving school without the work skills they need are actually a massive burden on businesses that puts them off, and it's difficult for young people to find apprenticeships for that reason. So to throw it to the business community, then please do take a look at the information that is out there about degree apprenticeships and explore if that's for you. And to throw it back to the public sector as well, how can we make degree apprenticeships easier for businesses to provide and employers to provide? And also, just as a final layer, it places young people who are on child benefit at a disadvantage to go into a vocational pathway when they turn 16. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done at a legislative level to make degree apprenticeships accessible.
Excellent. I just want to check on people's availability to stay till midnight, because the other guys both want 2 hours each as well, and I think this is definitely a 3-hour session. So I'm just going to carry on. Is that everybody okay with that? Because there is just so much to discuss. I've also got a lot of people wanting to speak. So can I just make sure we've got people wanting to speak on this particular theme, because I'd like to then sort of move on to looking at climate change and looking at transport and housing in more detail. Nigel, was yours on this theme? Yeah.
Yes, it is, but it moves into some other ones as well.
Okay, so I'll just pause you for a minute and come back to you. Is that all right? Fabulous. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it on?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay. So just a very quick comment. A lot of people believe that actually the current educational system will go through massive reforms in the next few years. The current system is based on hundreds of years of practice, which is knowledge accumulation. And when you pass on the knowledge for a long time, you will create knowledge that will be beneficial to the society. This mindset is changing as AI is, I won't use the word taking over, but as AI is emerging. So there will be an issue that the skills that you are learning now, whether they will be future-proof, whether they will be in demand in the future, in near future, that's a big question. That's a huge concern. So at the moment, I mean, no matter what we discuss about that, how education system should look like, it will go through massive reforms. Another thing is that many people believe that that some of the things that we do in the universities should actually be brought down to schools. So these skills will be more accessible, they will be cheap, and universities will downsize and will only focus on knowledge creation in partnership with industry. So which means that the role of universities in the future may well change as well. So it won't be public facing, at least in so many disciplines, particularly in technology and science. It will be more industry facing, whereas the skills that youth need, these skills may actually trickle down to as an additional role or as a core role of schools. So, yeah.
Fascinating, thank you for that. And a lot to think about in terms of what we're going to come on to next around the impacts of AI. Tony, did you want to comment quickly? And then we're going to move on perhaps to a different subject. Is that okay? Yeah. Should be on, yeah.
Yeah. I thought the panel were great, and I thought Eva's presentation was excellent, very informative, but also I found it slightly worrying, I have to say. And I don't want to be negative here this afternoon, but Eva's comments on antisocial behaviour being a block to people, I found that really very worrying. And I wonder where you think, the panel think, things can be improved and antisocial behaviour can be contained, reduced.
Yep. Kelly, could I ask you? Aryan, did you want to go first?
Yeah.
I'll come to you, Kelly.
Yeah, so currently with the Youth Council, we've been working on tackling antisocial behaviour. And one of the main things we believe we can do to tackle antisocial behaviour is, as Eva said, creating more youth spaces where youth feel welcomed to, spend their time after school rather than loitering around with perhaps company which they shouldn't be with and, making other people feel uncomfortable. I think that's the main way we can tackle it, by having cheap yet fun and accessible youth spaces around the city, so that it's equal for all young people rather than just having it in one area.
Thank you. And Kelly, you to comment on that?
Well, it's really hard to say, and I've never really had an answer for antisocial behaviour because it's so hard to predict people's behaviour. But I would say, obviously, the standard, I believe, starts in education. I believe it starts with showing young people that actually it pays off to be respectful. It pays off, whether it be in the in the work sector. It pays off to present yourself well, and that's not me saying that it's a young people issue, but if we start off with the precedent that actually it is okay to be antisocial, then eventually it will trickle down. But I guess it's about elevating that sense of pride and that being respectful, being decent, being civilized isn't weird or different.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. And Daisy, I think you wanted to comment.
I think we see in Peterborough a lot of youth centres and community centres being closed down, and we don't get offered a safe space to hang out anymore. The funding's not there, and that encourages more people to participate in antisocial behaviour, because where else other than our streets is there for us to hang out and talk to each other and go to the park? The parks aren't even seen as safe anymore because there's a group of people participating in antisocial behaviour, and then you get encouraged to partake in it. And if we had community centres, if we had youth hubs, then more people will get out of antisocial behaviour.
Yeah, I think that's so important, isn't it? That point about investment in youth services and youth spaces. I read somewhere the other day that youth funding has been cut by 70% in the last 10 years, 70. So it's pretty alarming. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to turn to Jacob now and then Nigel. Do you want to just...
I can probably shout about
Yep. I think it's for the recording actually as well, but thank you, Jacob. Thanks for...
So I think, absolutely fascinating discussion. I could say lots about apprenticeships and all that sort of stuff, but I was going to come back onto the challenge from Eva about local plans and the point made by Kelly about seeing the impact. People don't understand planning in this country, and I ended up planning. I didn't intend to become a planner. I fell into it. Very fortunate. I love what I do now. And that's the thing about lack of education, understanding what the planning system is. But the other part of that is local plans. It's the timescales they operate over. They are glacially slow because they are long-term plans. So I'm working on sites I spent 15 years working on, which there's not even a spade in the ground. It's not in the planning permission yet. And they will not be built probably, won't be finished being built probably for another 20, 30 years. But the whole of my career before they're completely finished. So we've got to accept that things take time. That thing. So what we, in my view, and I've scratched my head about this in many different roles, public and private sector. I'm currently private sector consultancy, but is that feedback loop. So it's about showing people, it's about a narrative, and it's about, and Richard is a storyteller professionally, you'll understand this, it's about people seeing. So if 15 years. So you guys were barely born. Some of you may not have even been born when I was working on some of these sites. There's not a spade in the ground, but people were involved 15 years ago. And so it's about that check and balance and that feedback loop, and it's through conversations like this, I think, how we do those sorts of things. But I do wonder whether there's a role for it to be more formalised, more regularised in terms of engagement, but also learning lessons, because frankly, even how we consult has evolved so much in 15 years. I mean, 15 years ago, I was leaving university and Facebook was just becoming a thing. Just a thing at that point, so...
Thank you, Joe. And I think absolutely right, and goes back to your fundamental point there, well, all of you really, that it's no good just sort of sitting here and listening. We then need to think about how do we take this forward, how do we address these concerns, and how do we then keep feeding that back and maintain a cycle of conversation, not just consultation, but conversation.
I was going to say, sorry, the other point, that thing around antisocial behaviour, so place matters, and the only way we deal with these things is by designing, creating places that actually deal with and address these issues. I mean, the funding isn't there the way it used to be. We have to look at different models, but there's different technologies. But it's about hearing that narrative then being fed into the process.
Lovely, Jacob. Thank you. Can I turn to Nigel next? The microphone coming here, and then I think Ian wants to speak. So
thank you.
Get the
thank
panel
you,
back
Richard.
in.
So a comment, not unlike me, a comment first and a question second. I think it's interesting to hear the panel use the words pathways and accessibility frequently. My question, not my question, but my comment would be a pathway accessibility to what? Because if I go back to the first workshop that Phoenix put on was actually what's the future of work, and that's indefinable now and in the lifetime of a local plan. So my postulation would be it's got to be a pathway to choice and accessibility to choice. My question, I was going to say the proverbial three wishes, but there's 4 of you, so I'll give you 4. Stats, great, interesting to see, but I'm really interested in the human element behind the stats. The words I hear professionally all the time are place, sustainability, livability more frequently, but I have no idea what those things mean, and they mean probably something different to all of us in the room. So if you had a wish each, only 1 each, not 4 each, interest of time, Richard, probably under the themes of a safe place to sleep, some way to earn money, and some way to get between those two things, because they're the building blocks of place or livability, in my view. Is what would you spend that wish on under those themes, and why? Thank you.
And that's a great question, because it's actually my kind of concluding question, but we'll do it right now. And I kind of also put it in the sort of context of there is elections this year. Presumably you guys are not old enough to vote. You probably are, Eva. But if you were able to vote, to the same question in a way, what would be that wish? What would be the one thing that would make a difference to your agenda and what you've described today? Let me start with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my one wish would be, starting to make the education system the perfect, so no flaws at all, which I know in reality it's really hard to do, and it might not even be possible. But if the education system is perfect and there's no holes in it, then those young people who are going from education to work, their work ethic and their work lives will be perfect. There won't be any, gaps in the way they carry out their work, the way they talk to their employers. And, for example, antisocial behaviour, if there's nothing wrong with the education, everyone will be mannered and civil. So antisocial behaviour itself will also decrease.
That's a great wish, by the way. Absolutely, pretty fundamental. Daisy, do you want to go next?
I'm going to keep mine short and simple. My one wish would be if we could, as a society, overcome barriers to entry when it comes to education. Yeah,
brilliant. And therefore opening up more opportunities for everybody. So does that go back to the inequalities issue?
Yeah, when everyone in society is seen as equal.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that. Daisy. Oh, sorry, not Daisy. Sorry. Getting too confused. Kelly, sorry.
My one wish would be that young people are able to make informed choices, and that there's that element of collaboration. And informed choice may not mean essay on Google. It might mean I get to sit across somebody who's gone through what I'm going through, and they're able to lead me and guide me.
Brilliant, thank you. And Eva, what about yourself?
My one wish would be to guarantee everybody a living, because I think the problem with young people who are going into work, it's not an issue of laziness, like some people like to suggest. When young people come into the labour market without an interest in it, it's because they think, what's the point? I work with young people who are involved in organised crime, who rely on food banks and cost of living support. And I'm a firm believer in the welfare state. So I think to support young people to enter the world, we need to be able to guarantee them a living and a dignified quality of life, which they can then build upon.
Brilliant. I've got two questions left. I think, Martin, you wanted to make a question, and Ian. But I would also just like to encourage any of the other young or younger people and yourself, sir, in the audience, if you'd like to make a comment at all, just let us know, because we do want to engage as many people. I know we're going over on time, but I'm confident I can make this work. Trust me. Okay. Okay, fine, don't. Martin, I think you've had your hand up for quite a long time. So do you want to ask your question? And then I'll come to Ian and then...
Hello. We went to an event on Friday morning talking about how Peterborough and the area can be improved. And there was a big discussion around having the university, having education, but that's the first part. What are your opinions after you've had your education, finished school? Are you going to stay in the area? What are you going to do? Are you going to take your degree and go to London, or are you going to stay in the area? And if you stay in the area, what's going to keep you here? Yeah. Or if you want to go somewhere else, what is attractive to you? So that's really it.
Great. Thanks for that, Martin. It's a really good question. It was kind of a bit of a theme of your presentation, Eva, that there's a bit of a risk here that if we don't put some of these things right, the answer might be people leaving. But let's ask the panel. Kelly, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, when I heard Eva mention that there is actually a possibility that young people just lose interest in Peterborough and see that, and Huntingdonshire potentially, I thought I've heard people speak on that realm. I've heard people consider that. As for me, I've decided to stay in Peterborough because it's for me. Peterborough works for me. As for other people, they may see that somewhere such as Birmingham, London, is more attractive because they can picture how the story of another young person in a similar area could become their story. Whereas in Peterborough, and especially it's been my experience because I've just joined the university and I'm only the second cohort in my degree, it's difficult to see how someone's story in the year above could become mine because everyone's doing something so different. In other words, that pattern is hard to visualize. And it comes down to predictability for young people. And that might sound immature. And it is, because it's difficult to find predictability in this world. But I would say that's what young people are looking for. Whereas Peterborough's great and it's fresh and there's opportunity there. Sometimes it can be unpredictable for that very reason.
Thank you. Ariam, did you want to take that one as well?
Yeah, definitely. So my answer, I'm actually quite on the fence. I think change can either take whether a few years, like 2 or 3, or it can take, 20, 30 years. So it depends on how fast Peterborough is able to change to meet the young people's demands, that people will decide to stay. If we decide not to go with the new mindset, and I think a lot of people Peterborough will find a lot of young people deciding to move out. However, if we do be a modern city and we do change along with people's views, and I think a lot more we'll find, instead of people leaving the city, we'll find a lot of people actually coming into the city.
I'm going to ask you guys, Daisy and Eva, to come back to that one, because I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then we're going to round this up. Let me take these both questions at the same time, please. So it doesn't matter who goes first, because I'm going to ask them at the same time. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, sir.
Good afternoon. My name's Mike Hardware. I'm a bit of an interloper. I'm a councillor from Essex.
Oh, excellent.
And I also sit on, I'm a cabinet member for planning. I also sit on the Harlow and Gilston Garden Town, which is 24,000 houses. To say what Jacob said, we are planning, local plans are 15 years. Garden towns are 30 years plus. Master plans are for 5 to 10 years. And in my time, 35 years in the development industry, the youth has been absent. And we are actually building all these new communities for the youth for tomorrow. It's not really a question, it's a statement. I think that developers, I think that planning consultants, and I think councils really need to engage with the youth and get them involved. Because, I mean, I do lots of consultations, and you see the profiles of the people who've responded. And the young people are always missing. The bottom end are always not there. It's always the older people, the people in work, those people who've already got houses, they're already on the ladder. What we need is to be building communities which are designed for the youth, because the youth of today are the homeowners of tomorrow. So I think we all need to be doing far more. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Couldn't agree more, quite frankly, and I'm sure our panel would agree with that. Ian, do you want to offer your question? Do we have some people from Abbey College here? Yes. Yeah, can I come back to you in a minute then? Thank you.
Okay. Can I offer you a little bit of hope on the education system? We heard that it's going to go through a major revolution with the adoption of AI. But from your point of view, it is already there. If you want to learn programming, geography, maths, schools don't need to teach you that. You can learn that much better online at the best universities in the world, the best influencers in the world, on whatever topic is of interest to you. That is there now. What schools need to do is catch up and become the life coaches, the life skills, and provide all the things that AI is currently quite rubbish at. And that will come, but already you can do half of those things today.
Brilliant, thank you for that comment. I'm just wondering if I could just bring in perhaps the team from Abbey College here, because we had a few views on whether people would stay in Peterborough, but what about in Huntingdonshire? Where's your minds on that? Is Huntingdonshire somewhere you stay for life and you make a career, or is it somewhere where you get your education and you move away? And I'm sure there's a balance between those, but I'd be very interested in your views as well.
Yeah, so I'm Jacob Calver. I'm from Abbey College. I'm head student, and
Brilliant.
Personally, I don't feel like there's much going on in Huntingdonshire for our future. So I'll be looking to go to university next year, and once I've finished my degree, I'll be looking to move down towards London or somewhere with a lot more going on, because there does feel like there's a lack of opportunities. So as much as, so at sixth form, we're always made aware of our opportunities through our teams. So we have an admin lady who always goes and puts on the opportunities for like degree apprenticeships and stuff like that. But it's often further away from Huntingdonshire, and you raised the issue with transport and stuff like that. In Ramsey, so we're from Ramsey,
yeah.
There is poor transport, severely poor transport. So we've recently had, I think there was a bus to Chatteris that was cancelled, but we were luckily bailed out by a Jews bus company. But it's just stuff like that. It's happening quite often. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm speaking on behalf of the other people from my sixth form, but yeah, it's a bit of a struggle.
Either of you want to add anything to that? No. Yeah. It's interesting though, you said that it doesn't feel like there's much here for you. What sort of things would you want? I mean, is that jobs? Is that entertainment? What is it that you're looking for? I don't mean that necessarily at all, by the way, sorry.
Well, no, so for both really. Yeah. I mean, specifically entertainment-wise, I was actually at a council meeting quite recently in Ramsey for the parish council, and it just doesn't feel like there's much thought going into it. So, I mean, there's you see little things pop up in Ramsey. So we've got, like they put a basketball hoop into a park. It's just little things like that. And it doesn't feel like they're asking for the people at the Abbey. So, I mean, the town council office is a 5-minute walk from the Abbey. We could easily arrange meetings with the school, but it just doesn't feel like they're listening to that, because, I mean, it just seems like it's sort of a running joke in Ramsey now, with lots of developments and stuff like that. So we've had all the new housing. I don't know if you're aware of it all.
Yeah.
Around Ramsey, it's massive. But what's going to change for the youth to actually participate in? So we've got Ramsey Colts, it's an amazing facility, but then what about park areas and green spaces? I mean, there's loads in Ramsey, but I don't know. It's just not changing. There's no development in that aspect. I don't think.
Brilliant. Any other of the sort of younger people in the audience? It could be anybody, by the way. I am going to come back to you, Claire. Yeah, but who hasn't had a chance? I'm going to come back to you guys. Don't worry. To speak, that would like to. Would you like to speak? Yeah, please. Can we pass the mic over here? Because I think it's really important to hear this voice. And then I'm going to come back to you, Councillor. And then I'm going to come back to the panel to sum up. Yeah. Thank you.
I think transport is probably the main thing in terms of accessing the entertainment, because while in Ramsey it's a lot, the generation's a lot older. So I think the prospectus that, like, when we do surveys and things, even when the youth get involved, the consensus is always looking at the older people because they are the greater population. I think personally, before getting my driving licence, I wasn't able to access anything because I'm in Warboys, which is just outside of Ramsey. But my access to getting into Ramsey to do things, because Warboys has, out of everything, got the most churches. I've got 3 churches in my village, which is not exactly appealing to the youth. Well, it could be, but not for myself.
Could be.
But before getting my driving licence, it was, access to transport. Like Jacob said, the buses being cancelled, having to be bailed out by Jews. I think it's a very important thing that before focusing on this entertainment and things for the youth to do, that we need to improve the transport, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that. Very, very, very helpful. Anybody else? Councillor, did you want to reply? Or make a comment? I know you did, yeah.
Yeah, so this is just a further comment. For Huntingdonshire District Council side of things, we're celebrating 50 years of Huntingdonshire District Council, and we're forming as part of our place strategy, and the young people's voice is significant in the place strategy. Hopefully my colleague won't mind me saying there's another younger councillor on the council who was elected in 2022, and he made the difficult decision of doing an apprenticeship straight from 16 without going to university, and then putting himself forward to become a councillor and getting elected. And the sacrifice you make by doing that, is by... it's on. The social side sacrifice. So the decision at 16 to 18, do I go to university? Do I not go to university and make the sacrifice socially? I think the thing with university is it's such an important experience socially, and a life path which you could choose to really build up your who you are as a person. So for those deciding on apprenticeships and apprenticeship degrees, then I think the key thing to think about, especially those investing it from a business perspective and a government perspective, is schemes that will get those on those degrees getting out and meeting other people, meeting other young people. For example, at university, I was able to go on an Erasmus scheme as part of the EU and went to Belgrade and met a whole load of other young people ambassadors, and that was such a door-opening opportunity. So it's those sorts of opportunities, if you're not doing a degree, to open up the door to still allow a social element to your work and life and studies. I think that's something quite key to consider as to why someone might not go to university over university. And for Huntingdonshire particularly, we are, as just said, looking at our local plan, refreshing our local plan, and we formed our place strategy. And again, the young person's voice is key. So it's really important. I too am an advocate for linking our public transport network up together. In my ward, we've had so many issues where school and college students can't get to school and college because of the lack of infrastructure. And I completely understand about Warboys and Ramsey, the same thing. It's getting the public infrastructure there so that, and the investment into local communities, so that you have community centres for young people.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. Max, is it quick?
Yeah, just very quickly, to build on that, and I completely agree with you about, that education and further education is much more than just what you're learning. It's about life skills and building relationships, and all the friends I have now are not necessarily the ones I went to school with, they're the ones I was at university with. But it's interesting, there's studies done recently that
patterns are changing quite dramatically, and people are actually in education for a lot longer because they're sort of in and out of education, and also working for a lot longer, and not necessarily retiring at the age that the previous generation was. So it's about understanding the way patterns are changing and demographics are changing, and for planning to respond to that in a more agile way, and not that sort of glacial way, as you put it, which I think it would do justice to young people and the way things are changing so dramatically.
Brilliant, thanks, Max. Right, I'm going to round things up, if I may, by just coming back to the panel. So the question I want to pose to you is, what's your key message to this audience? What would you really like to sort of, for them to walk away tonight thinking about in terms of all the research you've done and your own thinking and the amazing work you do as sort of representatives and ambassadors of young people? So I'm going to start with you, Eva, because you've probably already got the answer somewhere, and then the others can have a little bit of a think while you're talking. So what's the key message from you? What do we need to take away from us?
Thrilled to have that question. The challenge I want to set everybody is, how can you run inclusive and proactive consultation? Because we've heard lots about how young people are missing from the conversation and you don't get their views very often. So how can you consult proactively on an ongoing basis so youth voice is embedded into your work in the same way as every adult has the right to vote? How can every young person have their ability to have their voice heard? And focus on the every, because not everyone, like us sat in this row now, is able or willing for their own reasons to come along to multiple meetings in their own time that it's probably very difficult for them to get to. So how can you involve all kinds of young people in a proactive and inclusive way is my task.
Probably a key message about holding the event in Stilton, which I'm not sure has a bus service to anywhere any of you guys live. So sorry about that, but thank you, Eva. Great point. Kelly, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I guess my final contribution is, think about what you're already doing, and if you have any ideas moving forward, then seriously consider whether you're taking something on for the sake of it, or whether you see it benefiting and flourishing the life and education and of a young person.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Kelly. Daisy?
I think we are seeing youth voice grow massively across Peterborough and Huntingdonshire, and I can talk that from myself. But the one thing is, we need to grow it even further. People need to know that these opportunities are out there, but people need to be aware of them in school, out of school, in social groups.
Lovely, thank you. And Aryan?
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, I'm very impressed that we've got such a diverse range of people. We've got people such as teachers, all the way to counsellors, and even employers who will work with young people in the city. So my one thing I'd like everyone to take away is, we've got time for networking. I'd pose a challenge to everyone to try and network with at least one other person which you haven't met before, and try and see if you can come up with some solutions, because if we're just working with our own teams, then we get the same ideas repeating over time. But if we're working with different teams, then we get different solutions which could work.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And I just wanted to say then, in conclusion for this session, a huge thank you to the four of you, and of course not just the four of you, all your colleagues who's been involved in pulling all this work together, but for you guys to come tonight and to really give us an insight into your thinking and the issues that you face, and therefore some of the things that we absolutely need to take on board if we're going to create the community, the society of the future we want. And thank you to the guys from Abbey College as well for your contributions. Perhaps a big round of applause for our people. Brilliant. Thank you. Are you okay? Go back to your table. So yeah, the one person who's failing tonight is me. Absolutely off the agenda, way behind on time, but I'm not worried. So we're all going to be okay. So what I'd like to do... Sorry?
You will be if they all go home.
No one's going to leave. I'm going to finish on time. Don't you worry. What I'd like to do now is move on to our next speaker, Dr. Faraz Janan, is that right? Yep. Senior Teaching Fellow in Artificial Intelligence at Imperial College London. Also a Senior Lecturer in Artificial Intelligence and Computing at Anglian Ruskin University, Cambridge. 10 years of experience in teaching and research. Doctor of Philosophy and Engineering from Oxford. Goodness me. We're delighted to have you, and you're going to talk to us about AI and impacts on the future, and hopefully perhaps reflect a little bit on what you've heard. Thank you.
By the way, the stuff that you guys have discussed is way more interesting than what I have to show you. So if you want, we can all together dump this speech. I mean, I'll skip quite a lot of slides here, and we'll keep it very conversational. Following the rhythm of the event. So, how many of you have actually seen this person in media? Yes, please. Oh, you have seen it? Okay, so that's an AI person. I mean, this person has never walked on the face of the earth. All this actually is unreal. It's been created by Sora, and there are quite a lot of other things that AI does. This is an example of that. It's very realistic. In fact, it's quite a long video, and this one is just only a GIF image of that video. So that's me. And I have been into a number of universities. And again, I mean, coming back to this seminar, I have never seen a more exciting seminar than this one. Everyone is just jumping out of their seats to actually ask a question, participate in a debate, and, you know, be constructive and, I mean, throwing ideas in so many different dimensions. This is very non-university kind of thing. That's a good experience for me as well. So what is AI? Presently, AI is actually at the very inception. It's at its beginning. It's very weak. We call it weak AI. So it's just a probabilistic model. It cannot plan. Yeah. So if I ask you whether it will rain tonight or not, you will go out and maybe, I mean, based on your experience, you will look at the sky, have a feel, and maybe you will come up with an answer to that. So you are making a guess. So the entire AI that we have at the moment is a probabilistic model. Large language models, ChatGPT, BART, Gemini, all of these actually are probabilistic models. They are only guessing the next word. So the AI at the moment is weak, but still it is able to actually do quite a lot of stuff. And of course, I mean, there is a lot more in the pipeline, which you will see in the near future. The first AI was invented back in 1940s. There were systems. I was actually going to put a video here, but we were not able to run the video because it is on YouTube. That video was showing that how AI is able to actually distinguish between males and females. You show it an image of a male, it will say it's a male. You show it an image of a female, it will identify that. And that was in 1940s. Then in 1958, here is our first neural network. And there was, New York Times actually published some of these videos. So here you have got this computer. It's quite a large computer, a very big computer. But it's not as powerful, by the way. So back then, if you have a 10 MB hard drive, you will actually require a plane to carry it. It was very big. It was the size of a medium-sized office. And now if you take a photo with your mobile phone, probably it would be the same, 10 MB or perhaps more. So AI has become a thing now because we have the computational power to run those algorithms. Yeah. Some of the most advanced algorithms, for example, reinforcement learning. It's very popular, it's extremely powerful. And it was written in 1950s by Richard Ballman. But then we didn't have these computers that were good enough, efficient enough to run these things. Also, you guys are at the inception of the fourth industrial revolution. Yeah? So the first revolution was that when we realized things can actually be done in a more formal fashion, you can actually create a machinery in order to produce cloth. That was the first industrial revolution. The second one was when we had a diesel engine, which means that you no longer actually need to push the wheel, but diesel engines will do it for you. That was the second industrial revolution. The third one is when we have electronics. You can compress so many transistors in a very small device, and now you have mobile phones and computers and multimedias and all that. That was the third industrial revolution. And all these industrial revolutions have seen its superpowers. Yeah, the first one, for example, the Britain was there, it colonized India and all that. And then the second one, you have US and Germany. And the third one, we have seen Japan, Malaysia, India. And now the fourth one, the fourth industrial revolution, who knows, I mean, what will happen next. By the way, this image is also AI generated. That's not a real person. It's just a fake person that no one has seen, I mean, in real life. So here is the evolution of, kind of evolution of AI. So we started back in 1900s, and we are somewhere here around the understanding of a mouse. Yeah? So though, I mean, a mouse is a far more complicated object than the entire AI combined because of its biology, and it's also very efficient as well in terms of energy consumption and its movements, and it has emotions as well. So AI is not right there, but we believe that actually we are slightly lagging behind. This was an image that was created, I think in 2017. So the projection was that we would be there, but we are still not there. Okay, so AI in action. What is going to happen next? This is, maybe $1 billion question. No one really knows that what is going to happen next in the next 2 years or in the next 5 years. Maybe in the next year, yes, we might be able to guess. But it's extremely difficult to say that what will happen to youth by 2040, because it would be a completely different world. The fourth industrial revolution is not a marginal revolution. It is a revolution on a completely different level. It's like part of the evolutionary process that we humans have been through. So some people believe that actually it might be a bridging between organic evolution to inorganic evolution, where human will be seen as a mixed system in the future, where we will be coexisting with robots, hopefully in harmony. So that's, by the way, I mean, a few days ago, Tesla announced that now they have personal assistants. This is, I think, called Optimus 2. So Optimus 2 is a robot that will help you in the household things as long as you are happy to buy the robot and also pay for the subscriptions. Then you have facial recognition, surveillance-based society, or whether it is a secure society based on how actually you want to see it. We have AI assistants all over the place. That's if I start talking about, let's say, buying new clothes, my phone will actually hear me and will start giving me suggestions on where can I find what I'm looking for. And sometimes these algorithms understand us better than us. So if I go out, let's say, on a Saturday morning and I want to buy a jacket, I might travel in the entire town. I live in a very small town, by the way. So it's not a big town, so I cannot really blame, I mean, my choice is there. But I may not actually, I may go into 10 different shops and may not be able to pick a jacket that I like because I don't really know what I'm looking for. But AI can give me a suggestion on my Facebook portal or maybe on another portal, and I'll immediately actually click on the thing and perhaps more likely actually going to buy it. So is it the case that actually AI knows it better than me and I cannot express it to myself what I'm looking for? This is a philosophical debate for another day, of course. Then we have Devin. So someone mentioned here that actually we should teach programming. I teach programming. I am not a proponent of making our children to focus too much on programming. This is going to be a skill which will become redundant very soon. So we have our first software engineer. So this is Devin. And what Devin can do is quite a lot of things. And all of these things are hugely complicated and professional, which means that Devin can do what a medium or small size company, a software company can do in its entirety. So it can write codes from the very scratch. It can actually fix bugs. It can deploy end-to-end applications. It can contribute to the mature production of repositories. It can do its own marketing, by the way, as well. And even if you, it can do real jobs. So they have tried it on Upwork. They have compared it to some of the most efficient programmers, that is the other AI systems. And Devon shows actually quite promising results. So then the question is that what should we be focusing upon? I'll just skip this slide. It is only showing, I mean, that there are various different areas of AI. So maybe it will take us out of what we have been discussing previously. So the thing is that what are the skills that we actually should be focusing upon? Here is a list of a few things which AI is already doing. And industry has reported that people have become redundant once these companies have taken up AI products. So some of these things, for example, customer service representatives, car and truck drivers, they haven't been completely replaced. They haven't been replaced yet, but that's something which will happen in the future. Maybe research analysts, computer programmers, paralegal experts to some extent, factory or warehouse workers. We see these, I mean, robots working in very complex and very harsh requirements, very harsh environments, financial traders, and a bunch of other professions. So if you look at these, I mean, these are the jobs which are actually quite specialized. Yeah, these jobs are not specific skill jobs. I mean, they're not generic skill jobs. They are quite specialized jobs, and these jobs are probably going to be most affected by the advancements of AI. Then the question is that what should we do? What should we do as educators or as a society or as advisors to the youth? What are the skills that are going to help us survive in the future, the skills that are going to be future-proof? And some of these skills are the following: strong verbal and written communication. So the first bullet actually scares me, and I am now worried about my own future. The second one is creativity, then people management, yeah, emotional intelligence. That's the most crucial one. AI is going to will have a very hard time in recreating emotional intelligence. And critical thinking and problem solving, that's also an important skill. So all these skills are basically not subject specific, they are person specific. Anyone in any field, whether they go to university or doesn't go to university, actually can try to work on these skills and acquire them. Yeah? And these are the skills which will help you to survive in future for longer term, no matter which field you go in. And all of these skills are soft skills. Yeah? Okay, so some of the careers and opportunities that we have in AI, if you are going to core AI, then the most common ones are AI engineers and developers, data scientists, AI ethicists, cyber security specialists, and more. And then there are further applied fields as well. I mean, the application of AI is just enormous. Yeah. So I think the first two are presently in demand, but maybe in the future it will be difficult to get job as an AI engineer. By in the future, I do not mean in the next 5 years, by the way. I mean in the next 15 to 20 years. Because presently the society is highly undersaturated. Any field that you see, I mean, you will hardly see that the benefits of AI there. And they need these engineers to actually apply these technologies in their own very problem-specific domain. So these are future-proof to some extent, the first two. And the last two, of course, I mean, they are going to live there for as long as AI is in existence. In particular, AI ethicists. That is, who is going to regulate AI? Or is AI going to regulate us? How are we going to actually coexist with AI? What should be the boundaries? What are the do's and don'ts? How do we protect the society? How do we protect values? How do we protect purpose in human life? So all these actually are major questions. And they are the major questions for the people who will be then actually youth, who will be running the world when some of these problems actually will hit us. So then what's next? So the present state of AI is that we see it a useful tool, mainly because it can do things which are repetitive. Yeah? There is hardly any creativity. AI at the present cannot plan. It's a probabilistic model, and it's not a threat at the moment. It is a threat in a way that most of the jobs which require some form of repetition, these people are going to actually be replaced at some point. But of course, there will be other jobs that will be created as a result of AI. And these jobs may not necessarily require programming skills or maths or the deep understanding of AI, but those will be the jobs that maybe some person in a week or 2 weeks training can actually adopt to. And that's what has happened in the previous industrial revolutions. When we had diesel engines, there were actually huge protests and all that. But after some time, diesel engines created more jobs. So something similar actually will happen in the AI field as well, but it will be a dimensional change. So we will be moving on from the present dimension or the state or the factors or the actors or the agents that we have around us that create this environment in which we live on into a different environment. And this transition, this evolution perhaps will take some time, and there might be some chaoses in the way. However, in the future, what people believe actually would be really interesting and also risky is the introduction of artificial general intelligence, or AGI, not AI. So AGI is, for example, if I create an AI application which can do accounting, the same AI application cannot wash dishes. It cannot look after kids. It cannot do a bunch of other things because it is not a general AI. It doesn't have any critical thinking. It cannot actually put itself in level with human emotions or understanding of the world around it. It does not have consciousness. It doesn't have conscious. It's not self-aware. So these are the things that people believe, not the people believe, but some of the corporations believe and the high-end scientists believe that in the future AI will have, and we will call it artificial general intelligence, where AI will be somehow mimicking a human behavior. But then the danger there is that we humans are very weak as well. Humans are born as a baby. Yeah, you have to look after them. They cannot even change their diapers. The same was true for me when I was a kid, but I'm a human as well. So anyway. Yeah, so humans are weak. Yeah, you have to sleep, you get diseases, we have, again, emotions. We have a very short time span in terms of the number of years that we live. If you live for 100 years, it's a very small amount of time given what is happening in the universe and where you are in terms of the great scheme of things. So we actually are maybe seen, some people believe that Geoffrey Hinton believes, who is the godfather of AI, and the present revolution of AI is attributed to him as well as his colleague, Jan LeCun. And Jan LeCun was a student of Geoffrey Hinton. Lan LeCun is basically on a spree telling the world that AI is safe, whereas Geoffrey Hinton is traveling around saying that AI is dangerous. So both of them were there, and they shared the Turing Award, which is the highest award in computer science. It's the Nobel Prize in computer science. So coming back to that, humans are weak. Whereas on the other hand, an AI robot or an AI product, whether it is a physical product or a virtual product, doesn't have to eat. It doesn't have to sleep. It doesn't have to earn money. It has no emotions. It has no relationships. There are no dependencies. And it can work 24/7. It can start working as soon as the production line signs it off. There is no waiting of 20, 25 years for it to actually become productive to the society or to productive to itself. And it can accumulate the entire knowledge that actually exists in the world. And as soon as there is a new piece of product, new piece of knowledge, there will be an update that will be shared in a distributed system around the globe, and each and every of these robots will together become updated. So, which means that there may be a point where AI can actually, not only in terms of knowledge, but in terms of its existence, outperform us. And humans may be in a position to realize this, or perhaps they may not. So, yeah, overall, okay, I went into more of philosophy at the end of my talk. This is the, my teacher role that actually tries to take me to a more pessimistic kind of future. But generally speaking, you youth have to actually think about the future, not in terms of how things are happening now and in the past, but also how the future will look like in future. The future will look like in the future. That's not actually a correct sentence. But you, I hope, got the message what I'm trying to say.
I thought that was absolutely fascinating. I'm not just saying this, I thought that's absolutely fascinating first session. Really kind of made me think a lot, both the young people's panel and your views, but just that little presentation on AI, I'm a bit sort of, I don't know really, I find it quite perplexing to know what that all means and how it will change and shape our lives, and who shapes whom, and does AI shape us, do we shape AI? Lots and lots to discuss. What I've decided to do, because we overran a little bit, is I'm going to invite Al to come up next, and then when Al's finished, we're going to have a sort of joint sort of panel with Al and Dr. Faraz to talk about both of their presentations. But what I'd really encourage as well is lots more involvement from the audience, and definitely I'll be picking on guys to give us their views. Fundamentally, how do you feel about AI? How do you feel about the economy that Al's going to talk about? Lots to think about and consider. So, without further ado, I'm going to invite Al to come and join us. Al's biography takes up a whole page on my notes. Maybe you just skip it, you do it yourself. All right, thanks, Al. Congratulations.
Hi there, folks. Pleasure to be here. I'm very mindful that I get the opportunity to be the barrier between you and the canapes and nibbles. So I'm going to try and be succinct. I do wear quite a few hats, and that's probably what keeps me motivated and interested. In essence, for the purpose of this conversation, 30 years CEO of a technology company developing computer software around the world, and linked to that within the commercial world, I'm now chair of the Combined Authorities Business Board. On the other half, 20 years working with schools, multi-academy trust, chair of a multi-academy trust in Peterborough, an infant school. I sit on the Department for Education's board for the East of England, supporting education. I'm an apprenticeship ambassador. The list might go on, but there's two themes really. There's technology and skills, and that opportunity for everyone. And actually, I think that aligns quite nicely with some of the themes that we've heard earlier on. I'm going to try in 20 minutes to glue together some of the previous points and link it around what that means for this place. In terms of this place, it's very easy to talk about Cambridgeshire and Peterborough and the Combined Authority in one singular sense. But any of us who live here will know there are really very distinct differences, different opportunities and different challenges. And so one of the economic strands is, what do we have? Well, we have a world-renowned centre in Cambridge that has some amazing strengths in biosciences and technology. We've got one of the fastest growing economies in Peterborough with huge opportunity for growth. We've got actually sector-leading agri-tech across the Fenland region. And we've got pockets of excellence and amazing innovation all across the region. Sometimes the challenge, though, is how do we pull those and connect them all together. Right now, there is absolutely a really strong strategic plan to continue to develop one of the few regions across the whole country that is a net positive contributor into UK PLC. But often our mindset is every measure of success or failure that we undertake is on, does it make more GVA, more profit, more revenue in the coffers of our country to do things? And actually, of course, we all know that there's much broader measures about, do we actually unlock the economic potential of this region? As I said, I'm somewhat biased when it comes to education and skills being my real passion. And fundamentally, if you want to unlock the engine room of a region, I'm hoping it isn't 35 years like some urban planning that I've heard about. However, you have to fundamentally start with, if we create more jobs in our region, we need to have skilled people to fill them. Otherwise, we simply recruit from outside or overseas, and we don't unlock the potential. If we don't create the space and the transport infrastructure, whether it's trains, whether it's buses, and those being affordable and accessible, or we don't provide ways of having low-cost transportation for both our children, our youth, and our working population across the board, then how do we expect to have a region of cohesive growth and not the simple challenge of all the highest paid jobs are there and all the lowest and most affordable houses are there and ne'er the twain shall meet? Now, historically, one of the biggest challenges educationally was always about place-based opportunity. In many ways, you are defined and your opportunities are restricted by where you're born and where you live. They often use the anecdotal examples of a secondary school in Sunderland where 95% of the workforce expect to walk out the door and go and work at the Nissan plant in Sunderland because that's where everybody within that community worked. And as such, they would shape the curriculum somehow to match some of those skills. Well, of course, now we've seen that you can be a young person and you can choose to actually move to your upstairs bedroom and connect and apply for a job in Silicon Valley, assuming you have the right skills. And connectivity, in some sense, levels the playing field. Only in some sense, because it starts with acquiring those skills and that opportunity. And so much of the strategy, if we think about economic growth, where the natural persuasion is talk about the hard numbers, for me is actually about the cohesion. It's actually about how do we align acquisition of skills and opportunities with effective transportation, with a focus on what is it we're good at in our region, whether that's digital, whether it's biosciences, whether it's agri-tech, whether it's net zero, all those different strands, and how do we bring those together in a way that we can secure funding externally to come into our region, to encourage organisations and companies to come to our area. Well, if they want to come to our area, they want to build a factory or an office plant or a research facility, they will want places where people can live. They will want good education for their families. They will want transportation. They will want their families to feel safe and have spaces to develop. And so ultimately our region comes together. Now, I always look at things as being a half glass full rather than empty. And I absolutely believe that in comparison to most regions, we have an enormous opportunity here within the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough region for rapid growth with the right focus. I also sit on what is the Oxford-Cambridge Partnership, this arc of technology and performing area region across the country. And it's reassuring in one sense that the challenges seem familiar in both spaces, but it's also reassuring that, like-minded, there's an opportunity to expand that reach and the opportunities for everybody. We often think about skills and careers and job acquisition as being a young person's space, pretty much because that is the space. However, long gone is the day when we leave school at 18, start a career and retire from it. Actually, increasingly, we choose to change careers. We have opportunities to reskill. So actually, looking at skills is also about our adult education budget, giving people opportunities to acquire a better standard of life by moving into different roles. So all these things interconnect in terms of that joint vision. And it's not easy because some of it involves a lot of stakeholders pulling together, whether it's we would like to do more adult education, but there aren't enough spaces in colleges or universities, or people can't afford them. Or we absolutely embrace the idea that digital degree-level apprenticeships are a great opportunity, but the provision is so wafer thin that it doesn't actually unlock that opportunity. Now, 10 years ago, as we tried to push with apprenticeships, and I'm a regional apprenticeship ambassador, the biggest barrier was parents, not young people. I've decided I would like to do an apprenticeship, and I'm going to be doing it in digital marketing. Parental perception, apprenticeships are a poor level qualification. I remember when I did them at my day, it was either carpentry or plumbing or electricians. It was the trades. Actually, trades are a pretty well-paid role, frankly, right now. But the point was, parental perception was, I want my child to go to university. Now, that's a great aspiration, but my firm belief is, where these different strands link together, is you give people opportunities to follow pathways where they're most likely to excel, where they're going to be happiest. And that's why, when we talked earlier and there was references to our education system, we have to be transparent. I'm chair of a multi-academy trust. I'm passionate about education, but I'm also a realist. Our education system, that's limits again within our own region, is fundamentally tied to a singular measure, which is we set up this system, or the basic constructs of it, during the British Empire. We could train somebody, whether they were in the UK or Australia or India, to get their basic numeracy and literacy, pick them up, and they could work in any organisation around. And that fundamentally, whilst it's evolved, has continued along that journey. And now we find this place where we, for example, say the most important qualifications we might achieve in our career might be a university degree. And we test you over 3 years. You do essays and written papers and an exam at the end. But for an A-level or a GCSE, we require you to remember it and do 2 2-hour exams. Do we really think that applies to the strength of every learner's ability to articulate? We might also say, and I remember it for some reason, probably many people do, I know what an oxbow lake is. That's good retention. I haven't used it, I have to say, but maybe at some point I will take up water skiing and it will come in handy. But the sort of silly side of that is, we've already got somebody, whether it was Siri and Alexa or the more evolved forms that we see of evolution, of technology, that allow us to identify bits of information, facts. We can search it from somewhere else. What we have to evolve is the context and the understanding to challenge it and challenge its authenticity. So it was a really nice segue, because we had up on here a lovely slide that talked about some of the key skills. And actually, from an employer point of view, and across our region, there's a report that's done on a rolling basis called LMI, Labour Market Information, which is basically employers across the region, what kind of skills are you looking for? And many will be familiar. And it will change over time, but it will look at those core skills. But actually, for most employers, the starting conversation is, I want somebody who has good communication skills, who is resilient, who is creative, who has good cognitive skills, who has the ability to check and challenge the authenticity of information, who can collaborate, is collegiate. There's actually far more focus around the human skills, or as we would call them, the soft skills, except they're not anymore. I would argue in the advent of AI, they are now the power skills. They're the skills we need to evolve. And of course, they very nicely tie in with this theme, which is part of our education process. And let's not think education is that age of 4 to 18. Education, frankly, should be a lifelong journey. We've just seen how quickly technology is changing. So why would we think there's ever an appropriate time to stand still? From that perspective, when we start looking, they're saying that actually one of the things as a region we have to do is not just provide opportunity, but is to refactor the way we deliver skills. And part of that's within our schools and providing capacity. Now, some of the questions asked were, it all falls on schools. Why can't schools make sure that a student can get everything they need when they leave school? Well, the simple answer is capacity. There's not, in any shape, enough funds to have enough specialists within a school environment, nor enough hours in the day to equip all children with all the skills they want. I would love a breadth of curriculum that everyone would have a choice, but there may only be 5 children in each class, and you can understand the maths, that's never going to work. I'd like lots of different types of exams, some that play to different strengths. I've been responsible and supported for a number of years the alternative provision in the city for children that struggle in mainstream education. I would glean far more from a 2-hour conversation than saying, there's your piece of paper, 2 hours, go, write it down what you know. Perhaps for some of our learners, we would consider being able to speak and share what we want via audio would be far more effective. We look at technology and the role of AI and how it's adapted. One of the things I saw recently, which is, again, taking that context of AI still being very much about looking for matches or based on data sets, of actually mapping brain patterns. Somebody looking at a picture whilst wearing a headset, and they're at a point now in Japan where they were showing research where they can identify you're looking at a train, a teddy bear, a coffee cup. Not perfect to what the person was looking at, but pretty close. Now you could say, oh, that's scary, someone's going to be reading my mind. Or you could say, think of the opportunity for accessibility that might line up for some people who struggle with their communication skills or disabilities, and how, again, all these things are about shaping. Do we take one path or do we take the other? Actually, ironically, in education, because our problem is capacity, AI does actually offer a purpose. But not to say that AI replaces the teacher. I don't believe that will ever happen. Human to human is what is the strength and power of learning. However, what we do see is actually not the fancy generative too much, non-generative AI, analysing data, identifying gaps in students' learning for interventions, personalised learning platforms and pathways for children for developing their skills. If they're getting lots of questions asked, stretch and challenge. If they're struggling, go back a few steps to a foundation. And now we're starting to see teachers using tools to create drafts of lesson plans or resources that they can use to enhance and engage teaching and learning. So it's a step at a time, but all the things that free up teacher time allow more of the interpersonal human teaching and learning. And without a doubt, we're now seeing the first digital exams being available. And probably the biggest one of all, we don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough capacity. If we want to wind the clock forward 15 years, you will find that most people's experience, I believe, of education will be hybrid. 2 or 3 days in school, a couple of days at home, so that you can have the sufficient capacity of students utilising the resources and the specialists. So what does that all mean? Well, it all means we say, you know what, the destiny is set ahead for us and we know exactly what's going to happen. Of course, with AI, we absolutely don't. Or we recognise that there's opportunities for us to leverage that. You know, computers the last few years in AI have got really smart, haven't they? Well, I would argue natural language processing's got really capable and really adept in the way that a computer can now speak to me in a response that is really convincing. That Turing test, I guess you would say, is, I'm not sure the Turing test is now the right test for artificial intelligence because natural language processing has allowed it to pretty much convince us we're talking to a human. So what's the difference? It's our ability to check the authenticity, to evidence, to innovate and be imaginative. With AI, I was discussing before this session here, garbage in, garbage out, old programming adage. But if you say to an AI platform, give me a picture of a dog, you'll get something that will be a dog. But if you want something that's very specific to a breed and a dimensions and a colour and a detail, you need to be much more descriptive. If you want AI to create lesson planning resources, you need to define a whole wealth of things. So that sounds like, well, okay, that's great to know, Al, but how? Well, that is identical and transferable to what we're seeing in the workplace. Being in a technology business, using AI and tools to speed up process, to create marketing content, to create resources that are specific, whether they're SEO optimized or will have the highest ratings and rankings based on data sets. There are lots more opportunities. So within our region, we kind of have to pause and say, number one, have we got a plan, Stan? Well, we absolutely have got a cohesive plan. You'll see recently there's a new passing of our transport and connectivity plan, which is very much about looking ahead to how we can unlock the best for transport. Remembering every region within the combined authority is quite different in its needs, from rurality to congestion within cities. We're looking at how we can make transport more affordable, but at the same time trying to look at ways we can develop new digital hubs, new initiatives that will bring in funding outside, how we can look at net zero, something that's very important again to our younger cohort, thinking about can we unpick some of the damage that some of you old folks have done to our planet, but actually thinking about how can we be sustainable. And sustainable is not just an eco word, it's how do I make my business survive? And that's a whole raft of risks. So the biggest thing I think that's changing is not only have we got a really strong economy, but it's outward connecting. And not only have we got now some coordinated plans, but we've got strong people trying to do it. And perhaps most importantly, we've got really strong business voice. And business voice within the region now is not about deciding things. It's about providing check and balance and challenge at all stages of policy design and output that we do across the region. And that's really important. But you know, there's always a lesson you can learn, and reflecting on some very articulate people earlier on today, there absolutely is a point that says, well, I've seen quite a lot of papers and a lot of reports in my short tenure as chair of the business board. I've not seen that much from a young person's perspective. And one of the obligations, I think, as we evolve is to pause and say, can we just go back and make sure that we're not making decisions too quickly that don't reflect that view? I know in terms of transport, there's been huge amounts of feedback, and that shaped some of the decisions that have been taken across the region. So I didn't want to go into detail. I didn't choose to do slides for the very one reason, which is if you're following two other topics that you know are going to be broad, you don't want to repeat the same things. You want to try and connect the dots together, you know. And I think understanding that is about just recognizing that in our region, it is one region, but it's absolutely not one region. The challenges for Peterborough and the opportunities for Peterborough are very different to Cambridge, as is Huntingdon, as is St Neots, as is Ely. But actually, all of them have strength of opportunity, market town development in terms of growing those rural centres. And I hope the most important thing these events do, which is great, is connect people, provide feedback, give insights, because the more that we have feedback, the more that shapes some of the policy decision happening in the CPCA. I'm going to pause there because I have a funny feeling there may be quite a few questions around AI and other things, and I do not want to be the reason for getting in the way of your snacks. But I hope that's a brief snapshot of where we're at and what we're thinking about across the region.
Brilliant, thank you. Lovely, thank you both very much indeed for those really thought-provoking presentations. I didn't know whether you know this, but I've been receiving questions all the way through the presentations to pose to you.
Get off.
And 100% of people have asked me to ask you, Al, what is an oxbow lake?
I don't want to get too technical with you all, but it's a bendy one. Middle curve.
Bendy Lake is the right answer, so congratulations, you've passed. Great stuff. So lots to think about in all of that. So I'm going to invite people to comment, to raise questions again. As before, I'd like this to be as much about a discussion rather than a Q&A. I wondered if I could start fundamentally, though, by just asking, again, some of our younger people, how do you feel about AA? Does it excite you? Does it scare you? I wondered if we talked earlier, would you perhaps give a view on this? How do you feel generally about AI? Just wait for the microphone, sorry. Just to be clear, the microphone isn't because we can't hear you, it's because we are recording so we can transcribe. It just means you're all recorded. Lovely, yeah, go ahead. And please, I don't know your name, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm Matilde from Abbey College and I'm a deputy head student.
Lovely.
But yeah, I think people tend to have a really negative outlook on AI. But like I said a little bit briefly, I think we should look into it as more of an opportunity and what we can do with it to advantage ourselves, as a whole society and everything. Because I'm sure 50 years ago, obviously not from personal experience, people were terrified about the fact that we can do everything on our phones and on computers and on TVs. So instead of being so scared about what AI can bring, I think we should look more into how it can help us, really.
And do you, as a group, are there things that you think, we rephrase that, we talked earlier about some of the concerns, some of the issues that young people face. Do you have any sense of where AI could create that opportunity? Perhaps starting with you, Matilde, is there something that you think actually it could do this and it would make things so much better?
Well, more about the education things. If if you think you're lacking behind at school or something, I think maybe AI could be a great help with helping you catch up and helping you make sure you get those grades that you've been working towards, even if your teachers are not being so helpful. Not that mine aren't.
No, of course.
But
yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Anybody else from the sort of young people's group first? Yeah, Kelly, let's hear from you again. Thank you.
Well, my outlook on AI is recently I found it concerning because it has taken some of my classmates 5 minutes and a search to produce something that I worked hours on last night for homework. But I see the difference is AI can't afford you delivery, it can't afford you confidence. And so when I see the difference between what I produce compared to the people that just went on ChatGPT, it's I see the value of me as a human, and that I see the benefits of AI, but I think it also highlights my uniqueness as a human in my skills.
What a great insight that is. Yeah, well done. Thank you. Fantastic. Al, you wanted to come straight in.
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting points, and I love that perspective, because with everything there comes context and there does come concern. Very quickly after ChatGPT was first launched, there were school districts in the US that were banning it, which to me is a little bit like trying to push water uphill, because it wasn't a case of AI is no longer accessible. It was outside. You know, you don't fix problems by not using. You fix problems by training people how to use safely. And there is still concerns algorithmically that, again, using that example in the US, when they were first playing with it, give me a picture of a doctor, it was a man. Give me a picture of a nurse, it was a woman. There was a case of data sets and bias, and those biases are extended. That's all being refined, and there's the opportunity for you to run AI programs with just your own data sets so that you can control content. I think what we have to remember is AI is that fear, and in fact, in many ways, it's that perspective that we have that AI is the robot that walks in the room and makes all the decisions. You know, we've used artificial intelligence, many of us, in one shape or form, or certainly machine learning, in terms of how we found our way here this evening with our sat-nav, and we were happy with our playlist from Spotify to be curated by someone. And we were happy when our doctor said, Mr. Kingsley, I've just had a look at your health charts and you're in a high-risk category for X. Somebody was looking at large data sets and that benefited. So that's not to be flippant. I think your comments are really important, and it ties in with education. A child can go away and say, write my essay for me, if they ask the question in the right way. But is that knowledge? The point is it changes the education system. It changes more to, as a teacher, how do I now test and assess a child's understanding rather than explicitly accepting what's on the sheet of paper? Can I ask questions around that? Can I discuss around it? Can I create opportunities to extend that learning from it? So it's a change, but it isn't necessarily a threat in that regard.
Farah, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we should be, of course, very optimistic about the uses of AI and how it is going to actually shape our lives or shape the lives of the future generations. I think the biggest opportunity that AI has offered us is to move from a knowledge-based economy to a skill-based economy, where the knowledge has been socialized. So it is more accessible. AI is more inclusive. Anyone can actually learn new skills. And skills are perhaps, the most important things when it comes to society, when it comes to livelihood, as compared to, let's say, scholarship. So AI has made this thing very accessible. It has also helped, and in the future it will further actually achieve this, to blur the boundaries or blur the walls, the lines between vocational education, self-learning, and university education. And also it will help people, to those who are willing to work hard and those who have a passion to learn something or to achieve something, to have this knowledge as well as the skills accessible to them. So I think this would be actually the biggest, I believe, the opportunity that AI will create, and it will have a transformational effect on the entire society, on the industry, on the education operators, everything we see around. So, yeah.
Excellent. Anybody? Yes, sorry, I haven't heard from you. Thank you.
So speaking as an employer, we are looking for people who use AI as a co-pilot and as a tool. So for us, we see it very much as what spreadsheets did for accountants.
Oh, sorry. That's great.
Sorry, the last part of your question?
No, it wasn't a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just want to pass it to Ian, just to your right, and he'll, I guess, comment. And again, I'm looking for anybody else who wants to address that bigger question of how do we feel about AI? Again, yeah, thank you. Yeah, lovely. Go ahead, Ian.
I'm encouraged about the quality of the conversation about AI, because it feels like the early days of the internet, which is now 40 years ago. And AI is going to go through the kind of change where we didn't know what it was going to do. And it's changed all of our lives completely in the last 40 years. AI is going to do the next one by 2040, it'll be quicker than 40 years, is what I'm saying. And a little example around Oxbow Lakes. The planning people are thinking about, yes, should I put houses in this part of the Peterborough near the lakes? AI will understand an Oxbow Lake, will be able to look at patterns in geology that people in planning department haven't got the insight to look at. And they'll go, I wouldn't put houses here. The important thing is the questions to ask the AI. Ask the AI, should I be building houses here? And it'll come back with insights that you didn't know there was an Oxbow Lake there 2 million years ago. And when climate changes, it'll be very similar, and I wouldn't build houses just there at the moment. Yep. And when you look at climate change and the fens, we have a really big problem. Our coastline is going to be very close. And so we need to use AI to be able to answer questions like that.
Can I just come back on one small point on that? Because I agree with you in many regards, but recognising there are still limitations in terms of that consideration. We could tie back to some of the earlier conversations of you could design a new housing development with AI based on will everything sink into the earth or not, and will things flow right? But we've also got that sense of, will people perceive this layout as safe spaces? Will it give us a sense of place and purpose, and will we like the aesthetics of it? Something that's happening in education is moving from league tables around the world, top countries, to now measuring about a system for human flourishing. That sense of there's also a human layer, no matter how much number crunching we can do. So it's that blend that's important.
So I've got thank you very much indeed. I've got probably about another 10 people want to speak, which is great. So I'm going to I'm going to make sure everyone gets to speak. Certainly, thank you. What I was going to do is I'm going to prioritise, hope you don't mind, our younger people who are with us, and then people who haven't spoken so far. But I'm going to make sure I get through everybody. So if I don't come to you, don't worry, I'm going to get there. So let's start with someone who hasn't spoken before. I don't know your name. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Michael. I represent the Student Council in Neem Park Academy.
Great.
My opinions on AI, I find that quite fascinating, but there are some students we've interviewed that struggle with AI at home due to accessibility, or just they don't find learning off AI the same way they do off learning off worksheets or paper. I just wanted to know if there was any way we could perhaps find a way around that.
Brilliant, thank you.
I think the reason that actually they struggle with AI is because it's a very new field, and that this was not part of their curriculum. But for students who are going to actually, the students who we will see in the future, they actually will be much more aware of AI and probably will be in a better position to use it, because it will then, they would have seen it in their curriculum at some point. To give you an example, when I started my engineering degree in Pakistan, that was in 2001, I went there to the lab the first day, then the second, and the third day the computer was off, the screen was off. And I was just, playing with the button, trying to actually turn on the computer. But of course it was a computer monitor, not the computer itself. So I asked my neighbor that, how do you turn on this thing? And he said, well, sorry, mine was already on. But if you talk to university students now, they know Python. They have used, some form of, or seen some form of machine learning already. They have played with the images, maybe in Photoshop and so on. So they are more technology aware. So I think the issue that actually we have is that it's a new field, and therefore it will take some time to become part of the curriculum. And we see it, my daughter, she's 8 years old, and she already does some form of programming. So, yeah.
But I think one tiny top tip on that as well. There's lots of different apps you can choose, and there's plenty of different flavors that have strengths. But we're inclined when we first try an AI app to ask it a question, make me this, do that. Often the quickest way to get, if you're not confident, is to flip it and ask the AI tool you're using to assume the role of an instructor, and then ask it to take you through the steps you need to understand in order to use the tool. People don't realize it's capable of teaching
if you instruct it to become the instructor, or ask it to be Florence Nightingale if you wish, or whatever else you might want.
But it's interesting because that does take us back to one of the themes that Eva kind of remarked on earlier on about the danger of inequalities and making sure that everybody has opportunity and how we address that kind of thing. So thanks for that question, Michael. And Aryan, you wanted to come again, please. So could we get the microphone to you? Thank you. You will get a chance, Tom, don't worry.
So my views on AI are quite, diverse, because I think AI is like any technology or weapon. When we first hear about a new weapon, we always assume the worst, how it can be used really in an incorrect way if it's in the hands of the wrong people. And I think that's similar with AI. If we use it appropriately and we use it sensibly and in a civil way, then AI's got a lot more advantages than disadvantages. And like any other weapon, we just have to keep it in control, and we should not allow it to get too advanced where, we as humans are going back in time and becoming lazier. We should use AI to get more advanced ourselves.
Very good. Yep, indeed. I think that's a very good point indeed. And I think it also goes back to Kelly's point there about also maintaining that sense of humanity and what is it that makes me human. So, Julie, did you want to make a comment? I thought you did. Sorry, yeah, come here. Thank you very much. This is great that you're all helping each other. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Super, thank you. I think that's a really interesting conversation. I think from the AI talk, the bits that I took out were the bits that actually were really human, the bits that we need our young people to have to look at the future that they need, that they want to have and that we need in our society. So just to give you a bit of context, I'm Julie. I live in Huntingdonshire and I run a local charity, and therefore, I'm really interested in how charities can support and help our young people in the future, and in particular thinking about the skills and the confidence that young people might need to actually go on to use all those soft skills when they move forward. So how can I, as a charitable leader within our area and working with social enterprise and other charities, how can I support young people? How can I be active in this role that I have to ensure that our young people have the best quality of life in the future that they've got? That's what I'd like to know. That's certainly what I'd like to get out tonight.
Brilliant. And so can I just take one more question from the lady here? And then I'm going to ask both of those to you at the same time. Thank you for that. That's a great question, Julie. And then I've still got another sort of 5 or 6 of you lined up, so I haven't forgotten. Don't worry. Yes, sorry.
So I'm Lily. I would say I'm a medium young person in my mid-20s. I've
Excellent.
been in my young professional career for probably 4 years after I left university. And when I was at university and in the last couple of years, AI wasn't a thing. I had no awareness of this at all. And I guess my concern, selfishly, is I'm a young person. People sometimes at work ask me about AI or suggest I use it. I don't know how. I don't know anything about it really beyond this kind of discussion. So my concern is for people like me and maybe 10, 20 years above, and also probably the kind of 5 or so years below where you're not perhaps educated on it. There'll be a bit of a skills gap where maybe people will start using AI, but how will I develop those skills? How do I learn how to use it effectively in my work?
Yeah.
Because for me at the moment, I don't use it, I don't know how to, and it's a bit of an unknown for me.
That's a really good question. So how do we retrofit those skills? I think the other thing I would add is to me, there's something here about skills, but also emotions. It may be a very different emotional experience, so this sort of hybrid. I don't know, but there's something perhaps that we need to just consider there that isn't just sort of hard facts and skills. But again, 2 really good questions. Al, would you be prepared to take those?
There's a combination of elements that's really important, because one is really important is digital poverty. If we're talking about equity, we want to make sure that everyone has access to tools. But in fundamental, when we talk about how can you help young people without the magic of here's some money and funds, fundamentally it's about firstly giving young people a voice, because that shapes or should shape how we evolve and develop things. And the second is about imparting skills, making accessible the skills, because we often find that actually in terms of social deprivation, those that have least access to technology often have least access to the most cost-effective resources and the most informed information. So we can actually level the playing field by providing, rather than here's the device, actually here's the skills and the training to actually understand how to utilize technology. I think you also need to be mindful, if we have this conversation in probably less than 2 years, for many the opportunity is, if you've got an idea, use AI to create your own app. Create something that can be a social disruptor, something that can actually challenge the norm or provide people with a different kind of voice. We all know social media has a pro and a con, and there's plenty of cons. But that doesn't mean we can't create something else that provides a way of sharing insights and expertise. I'm really mindful that just talking on this very point, there's lots of places we can go to get tips on things, but other than saying go to YouTube and good luck, finding how do I get the best out of ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity, whichever tool is your favourite, it is quite difficult. And I think there is something incumbent on us to say, and maybe it's something we need to take back and have a think about within the authorities as well, is in the same way as we provide people with guidance on how to access other support, maybe we should be doing some simple guides and resources on how to get you started with AI, at least to the point where you can then ask it to help you on the rest of your journey. I promise you it's not too tough to get going.
That's fantastic. I was just thinking myself, I know nothing about it. How do we all learn these skills that going forward in the way that when the internet first came in, a lot of colleges were putting on classes for older people just to get the basics and make them feel confident with it. Did you want to come back as well?
Yeah. The first question I'll actually respond to is the concern about AI is, consider that actually you have a river that is flowing in a town. So the river itself is useful. It's not a concern. It's the flood that actually might come someday that people fear. And some people fear that actually this might be the biggest flood that they may not have seen, ever. So that's the thing. The other thing was about the charities, that what we can do. I think the best skill or the strongest skill that humans possess is humanity. So the emotions of empathy, of kindness, and so on. And that's something which AI perhaps may never be able to actually do, and it doesn't have a need to do that. So that's I think if you want to actually teach our young generation, the best skill that we can teach them is humanity and kindness. And finally, that how do we bridge this gap? I started my PhD when I started at Oxford. It was with a guy known as Sir Michael Brady. He's a well-known guy. In AI, he founded the MIT AI lab and was a core director of it, and the famous Oxford Robotics Group. He is a full-size portrait in Oxford University for his services to engineering and AI and related fields. And in 2014, we were having this meeting, and he asked me, Faraz, what is big data? And I thought if he was going to actually teach me what big data is, it was a new thing. And I said, I don't know that how big the data should be to call it big data. And he said, why don't you find out? And we'll meet again, maybe next week, and we'll have this discussion about it. So even someone who is among the pioneers of the field, when the field evolves, there might be a position where they will have to actually relearn. And the best way to learn, you go to YouTube, watch some tutorials, find things online, or if you want to do it in a really planned way, then maybe you may want to actually pay $10, $12, $15 on an online platform which will have a complete course on a particular subject, rather than paying £35,000 to a university and traveling all the way from China and staying here for 3 years.
Okay, so let me just check it out. Tom wants to speak, and I think Lynn does, and Claire, and Nigel. So I'm going to actually be very brief, and I'm going to take them three at a time, and then we'll put them back to you. So Tom first, then Lynn and Claire in the first instance, okay?
Hello, thanks Richard. I suppose I've got a bit of a philosophical question, or maybe a moral question with regard to AI. I don't think I'd argue that AI is beneficial if it increases accessibility or provides digital learning, etc. But I'm interested in the opportunity that it's got to sort of more fundamentally reshape society going forwards. We heard very eloquently from our youth colleagues earlier that society doesn't cater very well for them at the moment in terms of access. So we heard about difficulty to access housing and difficulty to access jobs. We heard about the challenges that climate change poses, and how governments haven't done very well at addressing that. So humans have got things pretty wrong. Democracy has got it wrong, and is it okay, I suppose, for AI to, I think as you inferred, to outperform us ultimately? You know, if AI was to make society more inclusive, more sustainable and fairer, but at the expense of democracy, is that okay?
Wow. Tom, you're a planner.
Because the threat is an existential one.
Yes.
You know, but AI has been known to impact upon elections and change the way that the outcome of you know what happens.
Yeah. Okay, can we just hold that, Tom? That's great, thank you. So just hold that one. I tell you what, I'm going to come back to you on that one.
I have a very short.
Okay, and Lynn, do you want to just give us your question, and then Claire, and then we'll bring it all together. And Max, I think you wanted to speak, and Nigel. Any of the younger group want to speak again? Please, you're very welcome. We can make time for you. Right, where are you, Lynn?
Here
There you
I
are.
am.
Yes.
Just in the same place. I was particularly interested in the same sort of idea as the last speaker, which is the business of ethics and what we're going to do about it. I'm a lawyer of many years standing locally, and you were saying, I think, that the career opportunities in AI, one of them was as an AI ethicist. Yes? Okay. I think I've got that right.
Which is not even a word, but
ethicist. And so I'd like a view on how on earth we're going to make it ethical. You know, what are the ideas at the moment? Because I listened and I thought, I can see us ending up here with a few tyrant robots. And I thought, gosh, that's terrible. But then I thought, does it really matter? Because we're quite used to tyrants, aren't we, human beings?
Well,
we've got lots of them. So,
okay.
we seem to know how to deal with them. So it's all about ethics. Really,
yeah.
how we're going to go about it.
Okay, thank you. Claire, Councillor, sorry.
Thank you. I thought it was really interesting when you raised the issue about hybrid schooling and the way forward with that. And I think, just off my own experience, recently my MacBook exploded on me and I looked up on the internet, looked up on Google and fixed it myself. I became an electrical and an engineer overnight. And I think that is the future. But in terms of hybrid schooling, again, through COVID, we saw schooling done at home. And I see the future for things like forest schools and that kind of learning where it homes in on the gifts of the child, where you can really focus and give the time and attention. But to enable to do that, we also need the wider workforce. Yes, it's been progressive since COVID with hybrid working, but we also need a further revolution in the ability of flexible working further to enable that. I don't know whether this is a question, but it's more just raising that, as I think that was a really key point about the future of education. And I completely agree that we are now we need to be in a critical thinking way of teaching our kids to be critical thinkers, not just worker bees, but critical thinkers. And I think, how do we create an education system, hybrid, forest schooling, all of that, to raise creativity, just as the doctor has said, and it's fantastic, so thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. So, okay, are you ready for this? Okay, so could you sort out the first question, which is, we make things better but at the expense of democracy, the ethics of AI, and further on the education hybrid, how AI can enable all of that, and you've got 2 minutes each.
Okay, let's go for it.
I'll go first.
Well, we can try, can't we? I mean, let's go to the very simplistic point. You know, is fire good or bad? It can burn you and it can keep you warm. You can start at that point and work your way up. When it comes to AI, there's huge ethical considerations that we need to unpick. I don't believe or rely on government. Generally, when policy is introduced, it's in response to something that's already happened. It lags behind the technology and the development. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have policy. We absolutely have, but we also need to identify and use the tools that provide us with the guardrails and filters around that. In terms of learning and hybrid, there's a fundamental capacity in the system. We have to recognise now more than ever, we've got a higher number of young people disconnected with learning because it doesn't resonate as a space where they're happy and comfortable, and with families. So the natural flip is to say a mixed agenda allows for more flexibility for some learners. The pandemic did us very few favours. One tiny one was understanding that people can, in certain roles, be as productive as ever from working from home and add to their quality of life. And lastly, if we want seismic change in education, we won't get it. And I'll say it nicely, given there are councillors in the room. Governments like to agree policy that can be enacted and get benefit from within one electoral cycle. The need for change in education is a long-term strategy, 15-year cycle, a whole educational cycle. And as yet, we've not had leaders brave enough to be willing to commit and invest without getting the personal benefit of the outcome.
Very good, thank you for that. And yourself, Faraz, I think you were going to cope with the existential crisis.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, and he has used the word existential threat. Here in his talk when he came to Cambridge a few months ago, I think it was last year, somewhere in September or, around that time. So it is an existential threat in many ways if we do not assume that everything in this world is about us. So if you have another conscious being, which is more smarter than you, which can make decisions, which can a program that can write a better program than itself, programs that are competing against each other. For example, GANs in an algorithm in AI where you pit two AIs against each other, and in this way they evolve. And they, as we speak, by each passing second, these GANs are becoming more powerful and more smarter by each passing second and each passing day. So if you have such a being which is more smarter than you and also does not have the weaknesses, then will humans be willing to become a secondary being on this earth? And this will then have all sorts of problems such as, democracy, free will, etc., etc. And even, the numbers that we have here in human. The number of humans that actually we have on Earth. So, as Earl said, that actually fire can be useful or it can burn your hands. But one thing fire cannot do is to run after you. So people are worried that maybe at some point AI might be capable to run after us. Currently, we have the plug. We can switch it off because it requires electricity. It depends on energy. But once we have memory-less systems, where systems do not rely on energy so much, and they are able to generate the energy on their own, and they are able to write the code, we currently have AI systems which can write the code for itself. For example, Discovery on Mars come across situations that humans have never encountered, and therefore it tries to find a way to get out of those situations. It writes the code, it changes nature, it changes behavior, etc., etc. So in that sense, it can become an existential threat if we do not put the right procedures in place and also the rules of the games that can that can make sure that humans in their current form are safe and the human civilization can still thrive in existence, in coexistence with AI.
So Tom can sleep tonight.
Sorry?
So Tom can sleep tonight?
Of course, we are, the current AI is auto-regressive, so it's called auto-regressive, so it is a weak one. To answer the other question, I think one was about, about the regulations. So the current AI policy in the UK was published in 2019. When I checked it this morning, it was still in 2019. There hasn't been any new policy. But I think there will be another one coming up soon because this is a question that everyone is asking. Who controls AI? What should be regulations? If a self-driving car hits someone, can a self-driving car go to jail? Or if a robotic arm actually makes a mistake during an operation, who is going to be responsible for that? So we humans usually work in a reinforced way. That is, either you do things wrong or you go to jail. That's not something that you can enforce on robots. So there is a regulation gap, but because humans have not encountered such a situation in the past, therefore there are no comparisons that one can draw from. But last year during November, the first AI Safety Summit happened in the UK, which the Prime Minister and some of the other global leaders attended. And this was the initial point, that how do we define AI ethics and how do we look into our law structure and so on with regards to AI.
Okay, lovely. So very quickly then, Nigel and then Max, and then we're going to conclude there. Nigel.
Yeah, I'll be quick, hopefully. Kelly, having started the round of applause, please keep that human orientation first and foremost, because I think that's an example of the human check and balance that our colleagues spoke about on the application and use of AI. So I 100% agree with you. I've seen it in the business world as well. I think that human element is really important, because I think there's a dichotomy in the room, for me anyway, in my head, Richard, between the pace of change being the fastest it's ever been and the slowest it's ever going to be. That yet, Richard, you articulated in response to Eva and colleagues, the things they're talking about and frustrated by are the things that we had problems with when we were kids, and my parents not taking me to rugby training and things like that. So my question to think about when we're all making our way home is, Eva, absolutely inclusive consultation, fabulous, and we can achieve that if we work hard enough, but it's no good if it's not heard, and it's absolutely no good if it's heard and then not acted on. So my exam question for us all is, how do we, in the leadership sense, educationists, business boards, colleagues in the commercial world, and the counsellors among us, how do we actually make ourselves all brave enough to make decisions commercially that face into the future and deliver something different when the people with spending power are probably me and my generation, and how, when we see the next two local plans come out of Hunt's cabinet and Peterborough cabinet, how do we make the councillors agreeing those plans be brave enough to speak to the future and not produce a plan which is the same plan that Hunt's produced 50 years ago. Yep. So that's the challenge, is how do we articulate that and be brave enough to respond to the future when the ballot box works the way it does now. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Max?
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things which I hope are a bit more reassuring for the younger people here today. And when I left school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think, to your point about having to make those decisions early on and it becoming very narrow, I knew I wanted to go to university. So the degree that I did was what I was interested in at the time, which was the history and philosophy of science. But that was quite a risk, because I knew that what kind of a job am I going to get with that. But what I found was it was a really good grounding in lots of different things. And I've gone on to do lots of different things, communications and electoral reform, and now master planning and urban design. And just one thing I learned doing that course was that throughout human history, any advance is always, the first reaction is often fear, because it's about change and the unknown. And good, classic examples of that were around when we split the atom, and everyone thought that, well, once there's a nuclear bomb, then that will be the end of the planet. And there's this interesting parallels there with AI, but people came together to put structures around it, and actually it became a positive thing with nuclear energy and so on. And the same with genetic engineering, and now there was a lot of fear around that, and actually there's a lot of positive spin-offs in that. But just the final thing to say is to relate that to what I do now, which is master planning and urban design. And I think it's interesting how when we try and talk about creating new housing or new employment opportunities, it's the same thing is true. People's first reaction is fear. And actually what you need to do, and what humans are brilliant at, is tell stories about how change can be a positive thing. Not just for young people, where I think it's obvious because your options now are so limited, but for the people that are already housed, they're the ones that are often the problem. So having to explain to them why it's a good thing to grow the community, create new places, is an art form that I don't think AI can do, but I think AI can only help. So I think there's just a collection of thoughts there.
Yeah. Thanks, Max. Really good. So I think we've probably sort of pretty much come to the end of that session. Some fantastic insights, some great presentations and answers. Thank you very much indeed. What I thought I would do then is invite Carl, chairman of Phoenix Sustainable Investments, to join you guys on the panel. or you can be at the lectern, Carl, and just offer some final sort of remarks on the session, observations and what we've learnt, Carl, and then we can send people off for their canapes. Thank you.
All right. I'd like to thank Richard and all the speakers today. I think it's been very insightful and useful. I've just got a few takeaways from the 3 events. One of the things that when I heard the youth speaking, I kind of looked back about what I thought about life at 16, and I have to say that, was I feeling unprepared? Yes. Did I ever think about buying a house? No. Was public transport terrible? Yes. And that's why I became an athlete, because I used to run everywhere because there was nowhere to get on anywhere. So I look back and think to myself, actually, you know, I could almost reflect, and pretty much. So if it's any consolation to any of you your age, I mean, I felt exactly the same as you did today. Now, when I look back on it, so I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it kind of tells me that the world's not that much different. The one thing that has changed massively is climate change. That is the one area that I think is so massive. And when I look at things that I care about, things like the mountains and the permafrost breaking up, the glaciers breaking up, and then when I hear Olympic skiers saying that they're not even going to let their children do skiing anymore because there will not be any snow and ski resorts in 2040, there might be 10 left in the world, that starts to get me worried about the direction of travel, and that's only a small element. Obviously, the other areas of climate change. And clearly, the worry I have is that all of these COP28 and all of the different countries, even the Labour Party in their late recent, they've swelled back on renewable energies. Clearly, climate change is the one area that is obviously a massive issue, and frankly, politically and every other way, it's got to be the most important. So I kind of didn't have those problems back when I was 16, but I certainly do now, and they're major for everyone, and we ought to admit those. I mean, I think when I was thinking about what do you need to do to be marketable, I'm looking at the stuff that was said. I mean, I always think that attitude and work skills are everything in education. I mean, if you've got the right attitude and you conduct yourself in a sensible way, you'll get on. And I think sometimes that's one of the things lost in schools to some extent, because the basics are always the basics. You know, turning up on time, being smart, speaking sensibly. I mean, if you do those well, you always get on. And it's amazing how many people can't do those basics. So that's me, in a very simple way, trying to not undermine the education system, but in just to explain my basis of people who do well are those people who've got the right attitude. If you've got the right attitude, you get on. I think one of the things that's never really explained that much is, and I'll take it for myself, that sports has absolutely been the key for me, because one, it's taught me to win, it's taught me to lose, it's taught to win as a team, lose as a team. And so I think sports is underestimated as being unbelievably important in education, because I actually think it's probably half my life, but it's also been one of the most important things to learn how to do those things well. And I always often find very good sportsmen are often quite good at business and doing things because they work in a team well. So I think it's if you underestimate sport at your peril. And I do remember that when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, I mean, obviously you couldn't help but admire her, but the one thing I didn't is that was the period when we had the worst Olympics ever, because Margaret Thatcher hated sport. So that was a really bad thing about her that I never forgave her for. I think looking at the AI, there was some sort of really concerning issues there, because the soft skills that were mentioned, things like being strong verbally, creative, people management, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, they're all things that someone like me looks for when I'm trying to get someone to run a business for me. And it's hard. They're the hardest skills that I think actually to get. So if we're going to be going towards that, that's going to make it very difficult for those that don't have those skills. And I think there'll have to be a complete reassessment of kind of the education skills, in my view, in the business community, because those skills, which were played as soft skills, which may become power skills, are really difficult. They're the ones that actually makes people stand out. So I do concern about what does that mean for some of the more people who aren't quite as gifted and how they're going to cope in life going forward. I also worry about education from a continual assessment point of view, because I kind of think to myself with this AI, and and we're going to return more to sort of exams, because at least that's the only fair way of doing it, or some verbal examination, because you can't do continual assessment anymore, because it's just not going to work, is it? Because and I find it almost amazing now that I can get a letter from someone and I know it's been written by ChatGPT. It's too good, because it's not got a spelling mistake and it's got punctuation. Well, no one gets that right. So to be honest, I always know. So I know it's been. And even when I get CVs now, and I can see they're being done by someone who thinks they're being clever, I'm quite a rebellious person. So when I get that, I think, well, that's the wrong thing to be doing, because you haven't done this yourself. You've just made it up. So I'd rather have someone who got it all wrong and prefer them, when I wouldn't say that before. But that's just a kind of the way the world is going to end up. And you've got to kind of see through whether people are actually doing something or whether they are actually using the ChatGPT. But I guess that people get used to that kind of thing. It's just that I look for it now and I can see it immediately, and that's probably because it's not only a few people do it. Looking at the economy, and I think for those people that know Phoenix, I mean, we're involved in a project not too far from here, and I'm looking to provide a Huntingdon sustainable village, and in an ideal way to mirror the Cambridge Science Park. That will drive an awful lot of innovation in Huntingdon and Huntingdonshire, and a lot of energy, employment, and then housing being at the back end of that, because you've got the jobs and you've got and to try and drive an economy locally where there are better jobs is going to be a challenge. And I put it to the local plans in both Peterborough and Huntingdon that the Peterborough and Huntingdon centres have not got a great reputation nationally, and therefore trying to keep people in the area and try and embrace them, improve and make it like effectively to Cambridge, somehow we've got to do something about the town centres and make them places there that people want to live, because Peterborough has been voted in the last 5 years either the worst or the second worst place to live in the UK. Now that's not great, but that's not me saying that, that's actually fact. Huntingdon doesn't get a very good rating either. Now clearly, if we're going to try and embrace sustainability and we're going to bring in some better jobs, we've got to look at how we can kind of create a place that is actually people want to stay and live. And so that's kind of something I can do in my sustainable village, but we need to also then work on a bigger picture to try and improve both the major towns nearby and make them accessible. But the green economy is likely to produce 3 times as many jobs as the old fossil fuels. So being involved in this area with renewables, and it's something that I'm passionate about, I think it's a fantastic future for the people like Eva and the team, because there's some fantastic opportunities in an area where it could become one of the centres if we get it right. So I leave that with a positive message, because I couldn't think of anywhere better, albeit you might think the external people, but Peterborough and Huntingdon is a great place to be, and I think it should be commended despite some of the external stuff. So thanks everyone, and I hope that everyone's taken away a few bits and pieces, and thanks again, Richard.
Great stuff. Well, that's it. Apart from the networking, the buffet and the drinks, which I believe I think Paul is guarding the door, so you can go in that way or you can go around that way. But let me just one more time thank everybody who's been involved tonight. Those behind the scenes in organising it, the staff here, everybody for attending, all the young people here, but particularly those who joined us on the panel earlier. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Aryan. Absolutely tremendous. You shaped the whole event for us, and we hope you found it useful too by being here and giving your voice. Thank you. And probably I didn't thank our two latest speakers because we got carried away in the flow. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers. Great.